Hey, good afternoon. My name is Cyrus Gray. Welcome to today's edition, our 14th edition of Election Central. As we have made a commitment, we're going to be starting today with our pre-show, that is 30 minutes before the main show. So our main show today It's about having a discussion about Alexander Cummings' suitability to lead Liberia as president, and also his electability come October 2023. We want to do this today and also next week, do that also for Ambassador Boakai, so that we give our audience a fairly good idea, excuse me, who these two eminent Liberians are, as we together try to rid our country of the current course of leaders who have performed in such a dismal way that has put our country in a terrible state. But prior to this show, I'm going to have a discussion on one training issue in Liberia, and I will come to that in a minute. For the main show, we are expecting, we have a commitment for 5 panelists. They're mostly supporters of Mr. Alexander Cummings. So we have them here, and they individually will give us the case for why Alexander Cummings should be president of Liberia, and I will quiz them sufficiently. I'm not here in this capacity as a supporter of any candidate, but we'll give a good shot at discussion of a candidate individually. So let's go into our pre-show before we get to that main show. But to begin our pre-show, I like us to listen to the sound of a young Liberian kid who is hitting the scene with a lot of good music. Look for his music, the YouTube sound into it, where you can buy it. His name is King Dennis, and the song that is gonna roll.
Trouble coming, flex we got a songs in it. You're not laying ABC, oh yes. You're not laying timetable, oh yes. You're one laying SO, yes. Trouble coming, you're not laying ABC, oh yes. You're not laying timetable, oh yes. You're one laying SO, yes. Trouble coming, SO. So come and go man and tell her I blow, she go. And I can't pay no ballet, I bring my own flow, yeah, oh low. In my bono to go, I ain't carry my low, and oh no. When Clipper say, yeah, who are you to say no, HED. When I open my door, it's spiritual key, EEP. When before me on screen, and I work for what see, ME me. And I do that Jehovah blessing and ring, be we. When freedom bubble, and they pay to see, ATI. I'm finna love me, I love them, period of God, and I. They get started for me with my nickel and done, then I mean that John that catching a pump, yes, and I hear what can this one thing one ask, I have it. Every daily more corner behind you to beef, ISS. Rushing more like a taboo, then I you won't kiss, I it. And I honor your racing a death in that red, I ain't in. Then I running all in your blood and your V, oh and all. People thought you won't listen, you feel that I'm for, oh. So baby boy, you taking drugs now, you ain't up, oh have up. See how you get dry so on your mop, oh have up. I see baby boy, I speak just ain't able to talk, you are bad. Yes, I think my abo, I almost to cry, yeah, my mom. They were looking my face and tell me I'm blunt, you be up. In a ten or so go in the day, you can walk, US us. I won't be surprised my here boss, CO2. And the last time they were able to call her a foe, CO2. Yeah, let's say no the drugs and focus on school. You're not laying ABC, oh yes. You're not laying timetable, oh yes. You're one laying SO, yes. Trouble coming, you're not laying.
Trouble coming, you're not laying ABC. Okay, that's a young kid, King Dennis. Every now and then we'll be running these kids that are coming out and give them an opportunity, at least give the global audience that watch us an opportunity to get to know them also. So let's get into the meat of our pre-show, and we'll start that with this short clip.
Liberian and U.S. authorities have announced the seizure of 520 kilos of cocaine, estimated to be worth $100 million. The seizure took place last Saturday in the outskirts of the Liberian capital, Monrovia. According to Monday's announcement, 2 men were also arrested, one from Guinea-Bissau, the other a Lebanese national. For several years, West Africa has been a transit zone for drugs produced in Latin America and destined to Europe. Besides the US and Liberian authorities, the Brazilian law enforcement agency was also involved in the operation. US authorities did not confirm reports circulating in social networks that the drugs were stored in containers of frozen fish. The authorities also confirmed that investigations are still ongoing.
Okay, so from that report, you know that October last year, one of the largest consignment of drug that could transit any country, not only Liberia, was discovered in Liberia. And how was it discovered? We'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to talk about some of the issues of misrule in Liberia that actually necessitates the campaign that we all should get involved in to ensure that we remove this corpse of our citizens who have taken over our country and have shown us so much disregard and have been so abusive to the authority and the mandate that the people have given them. So I'm going to talk on the topic in this pre-show, the mismanagement of Liberia. So from what perspective, there's so many things that we could talk about to illustrate this mismanagement of Liberia over the last 5+ years. But I just took, since this issue is trending, to talk about it today. So late last week, I think probably on Thursday, the case that was mentioned in that report of the seizure of $100 million worth of drugs finally ended in the Liberian court. And guess what? Those who were accused of evidence so preponderous against them, they were all acquitted, found not guilty. Not only that they were found not guilty, but the court asked that the bribe money, $200,000 that they had put forward, which was also seized and in the possession of the government, should be returned to them. So let's look at what happened in this instance, and let's look at culpability from a leadership standpoint, and so that you can get a sense of why I mean when I say the mismanagement of Liberia. So I got a few short clips here I will run through. I'll tell you what. Before going into these short clips, maybe I should leave us with a small illustration of what we call what these guys are focused on. That's the preoccupation of the folks who are leading our country. Look, I lived for well over 2 years on the Rivals Free Highway, and going to work 5 o'clock in the morning. And a particular spot along that way, I would have to wait right near the seminary for white because the president was on his way to his club called Jamaica Retreat or some resort. He goes there every day and leaves from there midnight. They're just having fun. I mean, the football field, the building sinkhole, they got a whole bar in the back there, fully loaded with the best liquor, and all they're doing, they're having fun. Why a country lingers. So let's come back to this issue of the drug, right? The drugs get seized. How? How is it seized? The drugs were not seized in the port. The drugs cleared the port in a container that was carrying frozen pig feet. So the drug goes to the importer's warehouse, a company called AJA, somewhere in Tumpo's village. But the traffickers are tilling the container. They know the container that have their stuff. So it appears that somewhere in Brazil, they stuffed this P4 container with $100 million worth of cocaine, apparently to go through a weak country, which is Liberia, and then transit that from there to Europe and the United States. So the drug is now in Tumpo Village in the warehouse, unbeknownst, I may say, to the owner of the warehouse. So these guys walk into the warehouse and they offer the owner to buy the container that is in the warehouse, that they want to buy the pig feed in that container, in the particular container. The owner said, look, guess what? We have the retail place across at the Freeport area. You can go and buy all the barrels of pig feed you want. So since they couldn't make the case, they had to expose themselves a little bit. So they told the owner, look, we gave you $200,000 to give us the content of this container. Actually, a full container of pig food is only $30,000. So the owner got concerned. After a while, they realized that the whole idea was that this drug was in the container. So the owner has a dilemma. Do you call the police and report this? Do you take the $200,000 and let these guys go? So he finally decided to say, guess what? Giving these guys the drug and calling the police will be almost the same thing. So he contacts the U.S. Embassy. And he gets U.S. Embassy officials involved in it. So they get the Liberian police aware, and they go there and they seize the drugs. The guy already has the $200,000, so it's FOC, the fruit of the crime. But the perpetrators estaunce. Guess what? A Liberian guy is in the front of it. He was the guy who was leading the rest of the people going to negotiate for the drug, called Oliver Zizi. So he has a company in Liberia that into used cars or import, export, or whatever. Howbeit, he led this group and also facilitated, once the stuff got exposed, the escape of two of the foreigners into Sierra Leone. So with the aid of the Sierra Leone government, the guys who were in the Sierra Leone were seized, turned over to Liberia. So we have the people, we have the drug, we have the money, right? The group AJA initially was under suspicion, but we found out later on that in fact they were the one who were the cause of the stuff coming up, because they could have easily taken that $200,000 and let the stuff go. So we have a big show in Liberia in October, November. The Minister of Justice, my own friend and big brother, Musa Dane, leads a group along with officials and security guys from the United States Embassy, and they go and set this some of this drug on fire. I think they left at least 2 packs, so they use it as evidence in court. But they're burning $100 million worth of cocaine in public glare. You see in the picture there, is Musa who pushing the fire more and more on the cocaine. I don't know in the PHP era where they burn this stuff. I think around BDC, I imagine they have polluted that air so profusely on that day, but they burn it. At least we are told that they burn it, right? And then they go to court with all the evidence that they have. Last week, the court equates these guys. You see them with a lawyer. The other guy there, I forget his name. Yeah, I think he went to Cotton with us, but I remember him a lot. He likes karaoke, so always he used to go to a Lane Street bar where we hang out, and he takes the mic to sing all the time. Very good lawyer. I mean, I'm not blaming him for defending his clients. I wonder how he got a Monrovia circuit court in the face of all this evidence to set these guys who are clear traffickers free. These guys went to the business. They gave them money. They claimed that the drug was theirs. They wanted to take it back. The money is available, yet they were still set free. So let's have that conversation about what's happening in Liberia. The state now, this is just one instance of the drug, but there's so many things with people close to the president being accused of crimes, arrested overseas, black money, people close to the president being sanctioned for corruption. And it's almost as though the government, the sovereign state of Liberia, is a facilitator of crime in the eyes of the international community, while we all sit and linger. All right. I just threw this page to understand some of the things that are happening. McGill was sanctioned for corruption. Everybody knows that hardly anybody in Liberia who does not know how these guys plundered money in Liberia, how they were literally selling the office of the president to business people and all that. Well, we had to wait for a foreign government to say we'll sanction this guy. And then he got relief of his position as a minister of state under pressure. The president relieves him. But He's seriously running to be senator of Magigi County. And he pulls more crowd than anybody you can imagine in Magigi County. There's a good likelihood that he might win. Then we got my uncle Prince Johnson in the face of all that he has been accused of. And I don't bewish him. I don't really hope that we put anybody in jail. But I really believe that after the war, there has to be some measure of accountability so that it sets the ground for people to know that you can't just get away with anything and undermine this whole notion of impunity. So every time people who are suspected of crimes, whether heinous crimes or killing people or exploiting the resources of the country, every time they become, they get into position of responsibility and benefit from the largesse of the country, it is bad for the country. It leaves the impression that, in fact, it's criminals who are managing and running the country. What it sets also a bad precedent for the youth that they don't have to exercise restraint and integrity and learn and work hard to be able to succeed, because right before their eyes they are seeing people who are being accused of all kinds of stuff, and people are revering them, they are jeering them up, they are pushing them into positions of responsibility. So that's why I mentioned this. I mean, not to talk about VP Barker. You can make your own judgment, because next Sunday we'll probably have that discussion if the UP guys make themselves available. Then what happens under these circumstances? If the international community admires, and the word is out, you can hear the whisper in the international community that it seems to me that the people who are running that Liberian country, who have control over the sovereignty, who are members of the Committee of Nations, who have the respect and table in the world community, are actually facilitating crimes, are actually in cahoots with international players in crime. If serious people come to that conclusion, what are some of the things that they will normally do? And history has shown us the implication for Liberia's facilitation of international crimes through misrule. And I call misrule because it may not be that the president is involved in this stuff, but it's just the fact that they continue to happen. I mean, people dying every day. Last week, I hear they found some decapitated body somewhere in Pinsville, and there are no recourse. Not too long ago, the government came out and said they caught a cache of arms in a container. And we haven't heard what happened after that, what happened to the arms and all that. As though nobody's in charge. If the international community comes to this conclusion that nobody's in charge of the country, there are a couple of things they will do. They will label our country a pariah state. That means we are a failed state. We do not have a government, a responsible government. What that means is that a state is sovereign, and there are certain rights that states have already. They will not allow a pariah state to exercise those rights because they will be detrimental to the rest of the international community. Not too long ago, there's some foreign guy going through an airport in Asia. I think it was Indonesia. And he was carrying a diplomatic pouch because he had a diplomatic bag. But those guys subjected his carry-on to a check in spite of his diplomatic passport. And they noticed that it was stock loaded with cocaine. When he realized that, he started to run. He jumped over the rail right from where they were checking in, not knowing that it was 3 stories down. So he dropped to his death on the third floor at the bottom. Checking his pocket, what is he carrying as his traveling document? A Liberian diplomatic passport. So there is almost an agreement in the international community that criminals are having access to Liberia's sovereign documents. Now, if that be the case, and it seems that there is no end to that, and there is not a chance that these people could be removed, then we are risking being a pariah state. We are risking also state sanctions, but also we are risking rendition. Rendition is basically where the United States decides to look, we send special operating force into that country that has become ungovernable, and we will take the people who are committing these crimes by force and bring them to America and prosecute them. Now, if you imagine that all the evidence in this case was so clear about these guys who brought the drugs into the country, they themselves went and even pay money to the Lebanese people trying to get access to the drug in the container. The Lebanese guy exposed it. that we could allow them to walk free in a court. What jury? But the 12-man jury, that did they bribe them? Did they bribe the judge? And because somebody will argue, say, oh, my man, the people went through the due process and now they got free. Well, if people can go through the due process under these circumstances and get free, then maybe it's really not a due process, or the institutions that have been trusted to be able to enforce law and order and justice, I probably just conduit for facilitating crimes. And I am not going to just use this as an example. There's several other examples. Even at the lowest level in Liberia, if you have money, you can literally get away with anything. Anybody can take your rights away if they got money. Somebody can go to the police station and say, look, you give me a few men, $200, you'll be working on that one. I got one guy, I will teach him a lesson. And they can go and they can do any harm to an innocent or a perceived enemy of that guy who has the money. So I thought this pre-show, 30 minutes would be a good time for us to be able to exhaust and abreast some of the things that are now happening in our country that may occasion our country being labeled in such a manner that people will treat us as though we are not a country. And one of the easiest things would be rendition. Can you imagine how the U.S. government officials who were brought into this picture and made a big international scene that, oh, they've arrested these drug traffickers and their stash of $100 million worth of drug in Liberia? Can you imagine how they feel right now? I mean, technically, they were in error. That it was nonsense for them to grab these people. So I'm leaving this. That should rejuvenate our effort to ensure that through the chance we have now, through the democratic process, that we should proceed all measures to ensure that President Weir and his team of young, fairly irresponsible people who probably bit too much than they could chew, that they be removed from this stage a little bit and bring in Liberians who are capable of running the country, who will garner the respect of the international community. If you look in amongst the opposition candidates, there are good number of potential candidates who could restore the respect. And I say restore because we've lost that respect, restore the respect for this first independent republic of Liberia. Today, we're going to be talking about one of them, Mr. Alexander Cummings. He comes with impeccable credentials, earnest, sincere guy. I mean, I can tell you personally that some of the experiences I have had with him and the level of honesty that he has exhibited really astounds me. But I'll have his guys come on today to talk about it. So let's get an interlude. We have 8 minutes to our main show. So we will start right now, so we don't take up too much of the time, and give Alexander Cummings the opportunity to tell us about himself.
School. I went to CBA and then to Connington for 2 years before going abroad to complete an undergraduate degree. After college, I came back and started my career right here at LBDI. It was only after the coup and the years of political instability that my career took on an international dimension. At every single place I worked, I left those companies better than I met them. I entered the Coca-Cola Company as Deputy Managing Director of Nigeria in 1997. And by 2001, I was President for Coca-Cola Africa, the entire continent of Africa. When I assumed that role, the leadership workforce was 70% expatriates or non-Africans. By the time I left that role, it was the opposite, 70% Africans, creating job opportunities for thousands of Africans across the continent. Due to those results I delivered as President of Coca-Cola Africa, I was promoted to become the Chief Administrative Officer of the entire Coca-Cola Company worldwide, with operations in more than 200 countries on all continents around the world.
It's time for our third keynote speaker, who is a heavy hitter, a major heavy hitter, one of the most important corporate executives in the world. He is the Senior Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer of the Coca-Cola Company, which I'm sure you've all heard of. He is the former head of the Africa Group at Coca-Cola Company. Many functions report directly to his office, as in strategic planning, as in people functions, as in research and development. He was born in Liberia and is our third keynote speaker, Mr. Alex Cummings. Great honor to introduce him.
What does it take to manage operations of a giant global corporation with more than $40 billion in revenue, with hundreds of thousands of employees around the world? You have to be focused. You cannot be everywhere at the same time. And so you have to build the right systems. You have to hire the right people. You cannot do everything at the same time. And so you have got to understand strategy. You've got to be able to prioritize. You've got to be able to monitor performance, to hold people accountable for getting the work done. But most importantly, you have to be able to deliver results and deliver results consistently. I would never have gotten to where I got in my career by making promises I couldn't deliver on. To go from a deputy manager in one country to becoming the global administrator of one of the largest corporations in the world required focus, determination, integrity, and hard work. All of us have our own unique talents and gifts. Some of us have talent for music. Some have talent for sports. For me, it's a talent for leading, for management, for organizing large teams, and consistently delivering results. No excuses. This is the breadth of experience I bring to our country. Being able to set a clear vision, to build a team and to build systems that will allow us not just to get our beloved country back on track, but to finally realize the true potential that we have as a people.
Savers are crying, oh. Market women are crying, oh. John we are go, we tire, oh. John we are go. Innocent people are dying, oh. The students are staying home. John we are go, we tire, oh. John we are go. John we are go, John we are go, John we are go. Tire, oh, there we are go, there we are go, there we are go, we tire, oh, there we are go, yeah, there we are go, we tire, oh, there we are go, hey, go, go, go. The people are suffering. There we are go. We tire. There we are go. We tire with the hunger. We tire eating curry. There we are go. We tire. There we are go. Musicians are crying. Hospitals are empty. There we are go. We tire, oh, there we are go, there we are go, 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 yeah,
George, we go. Welcome to Election Central. Good afternoon, good evening. Today's edition, we're going to be discussing Alexander Cummings and his suitability for the role of president of Liberia, and also his electability. So we're fortunate to have a panel of real sharp guests, all of whom are supporters of Mr. Cummings' aspiration for the presidency. I would like to, we're still waiting for one, Ava Topa, who most of us already know. I hope I've made a point about the need to replace the current corps of leaders very clear. I don't know how clearer can it be considering the current condition of our country. So welcome again to Election Central. So we'll begin first, as we always do, by giving the opportunity to each of our guests to introduce themselves, say a little bit about themselves and why they feel qualified to speak to this issue. Let's start with James Wright from Windsor in Canada. James, you're muted. James, if you can hear me. Thank you.
Yeah, I can hear you clear. Yeah, I want to greet my fellow panelists. My name is James Wright. I graduated from Cottington with Cyrus being my, should I say, schoolmate, classmate. He did management, the economics out there. Growing up back in Liberia, I worked in several sectors. As a cadet, Ministry of Planning, Ministry of Labor, and Rural Development. Before I matriculated to Canada here, I served at the Elections Commission, starting with presiding officer during when Jerry Andrew was commissioner there. I remained at the commission until I was promoted to the senior magistrate position as magistrate, having oversight responsibility for Grand Cape Mount County. So I do have a bird's eye view about our government structure as regards mismanagement, corruption, and impartiality, and you name all the side effects that got us to where we are today. I don't claim to be any expert, but with my background, my education, I can do some research and gather information and make some correct analysis, not based on any individual perception, but based on issues, based on principles. I think this is one of the key reasons we're here today as panelists, because we're going to look at Mr. Alex Cummings, and we're going to discuss, brainstorm on why we think he should be the next president of Liberia. So I'm going to say thank you to my panelists there. Cyrus, thank you very much for making me one of the panelists on your program.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. So let's go to Gabriel. Gabriel, you're muted. Welcome. We haven't talked today. Welcome. Gabriel, we still can't hear you. Give us a sound check.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Gabriel.
All right, perfect. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to having a good discussion. My name is Gabriel Carter. I work in the banking sector as a vice president portfolio manager for a national bank. I've been in the banking industry for about, I'll say, 8 years. I have a master's in finance from Brandeis University, the business school. I don't think I feel qualified to speak to this, but I think I want to speak to this from a business perspective in terms of Mr. Cummings' role in the private sector and how he was able to navigate that. From a political aspect of it, I am a novice, so I would like to speak to the economic side and the finance side of how his presidency makes sense, not just for you and I, but the entire Liberia as well. So it's a pleasure being here, and I look forward to having a great discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, Gabriel, thank you. You're more than qualified to be here. I mean, there are issues that have been raised about Mr. Cummings' membership boats, and there it seemed to be an attempt by some to cloud it with improprieties. So your understanding of what corporation is, what the board members are in the American setting would be really, really helpful for us to understand. So you have a place on this table. So let's go to Peter. Peter,
Yeah,
welcome.
right. Guys, thanks for having me. And, I think this conversation is extremely important, and I'm honored to have been considered to be one of the people who are sitting at this table. My name is Peter Quayway. I am a graduate of Michigan State University, political science undergraduate, world government, and postgraduate at the DC University, Catholic University for education. Um, like Gabriel said, my professional, what gives me insight into this is the fact that I'm a Liberian, first and foremost. My undergraduate study was in world government, how government is structured, how nations are built. So I have a little insight into how other people did it. And with that unique perspective, I too am a novice to paying attention to what's going on in our country. However, is glaring and easily visible when you look at how our government is run, how it's structured, where the problems lie, and I'm looking forward to having this debate. And with that perspective is why I believe what Mr. Cummings is offering is perhaps the best thing for us that we've had in a long time. So I look forward to having this conversation.
Okay, Peter, thanks a lot. Welcome. And I'll go now to Duke. Duke, go ahead.
Thank you, Cyrus. It's an honor to be here and share the spotlight with my brothers, Pete and Gabriel. And nice meeting James as well. Well, my name is Duke. Got a background in engineering, and then as recent, I also have a background in computer. I'm a computational science and business, and working a grad to the North Carolina State University Jenkins MBA. But in my professional discipline, I have more than 14 years in finance and investments. I have several licenses and designations. When it comes to investments, I've worked in several capacities from a management perspective as well. I've actually provided leadership and training for the staff. My passion is politics. I love politics. And so I look forward to, talking a little bit about the political side and also lending my voice when it comes to the financial aspect of things as well, and seeing how best we can be able to educate people about Mr. Comics and his vision for Liberia. Overall, I'm excited to be here, and hopefully we can have a great discussion today.
Okay, thank you, Duke, and thank you, guys. I'm really glad that we can have this group of panelists. Last week, we had committed panelists to discuss an important issue about Liberia. You'll be surprised that they either came in too late, some didn't show up at all, and didn't give any heads up. So I was especially excited that about 1 hour to the show, I already started seeing Peter showing up and Duke signaling that he was available. So let's get into it. But I had earlier wanted to ask you guys individually on why you think Cummings is good for Liberia, but I will get to a little more specific. And now let's have an interactive discussion. You want to say something? You say it. You want to pitch in on something? Somebody said, say it. One of the big things that I keep hearing in Liberia and among well-meaning, educated people is that why is Cummings trying to be president? He hasn't worked in Liberia sufficiently. He doesn't have experience working with the Liberian government and people. And in their mind, that is disqualifying that somebody like that who comes from the private sector, who have had no experience working in government, and that shouldn't be considering to become president. What will you say to that? Anybody can pick up.
Okay, so I'll go and take a bite on this one here quickly. First and foremost, why the presidency for Mr. Cummings? I think that's a critical point because it sets the stage in terms of making voters and people to understand the logic. Mr. Cummings' decision to run for the presidency is about legacy. is about making sure that the highest office in the nation, right, which is the best way to actually impact 5 million people. He believes that he has actually been able to excel on the global stage. And so, with all of the recognition he has had, this level of success that he has had on the global stage, Liberia is that project for him, where he believes that from a legacy standpoint, he can provide the type of leadership that can give our people, 5 million people, the type of results that they need in terms of development, in terms of the private sector as well. Also, government versus private sector experience. Whenever people talk about Mr. Cummings lacking a government experience, it becomes laughable. And here's why. So when we're talking about government experience, let's quantify things or let's simplify things. What type of government experience are we talking about? Because if that experience was so valuable, we wouldn't have a country that's ranked near bottom when it comes to the economic index, global economic index. We will not have our people still fighting to get quality education and healthcare in our country. If government experience is what we're seeing in terms of the massive corruption, the dishonest leadership, and all of the things that we've seen thus far, then I don't think that's the kind of leadership. But yes, I always make this argument, and I continue to tell the Liberian people. One of the things that Liberia struggles with in terms of the economics of things is a vibrant private sector. For some reason, we have not been able to build a vibrant private sector. And because of that, we see that we have this situation wherein our people are struggling to survive. Our people are barely making it. Our people cannot find jobs. Young people, 90% of our young people in our country are unemployed. So I think from a private sector perspective, I think it's a strength. And in terms of a government and public sector perspective, I don't think there's a need to even set that as a qualifier for leadership in Liberia, because I believe that what he brings to the table gives us an added value in terms of the transformation that we need to see in Liberia.
Thank you, Duke. Anybody want to roll on that?
Yeah, I do want to jump in.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Pete.
I'm sorry, James. You can go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of things, right? I want to add to what Duke said, but there are a couple of things I want to also point out. Liberia is a representative democracy. So let's talk a little civic lesson, and let's talk about why government experience, that term, makes no sense. And when people start saying he doesn't have government experience, you need to question how much that person knows about how governments run. We're a representative democracy with separation of powers. That is to say, the skill set needed in the legislative branch does not translate to the judicial branch, does not translate to the executive branch. So whether he worked in government in the legislative branch, there would be nothing he would take with him that would help him be a manager of the country in the judicial branch, because it's not a skill that you acquire working in the legislative branch. Same thing, if he was in the judiciary, it doesn't help him prepare him for the executive branch. Three totally different functions of government. So those don't equate. Second thing I want to say, there are people who have served in the legislative branch before, served in the judicial branch, and they have those experience. Like Duke says, how has that experience helped uplift or lift the standard of living in Liberia? How has that helped create jobs? So when someone says that, ask them, how does that translate into creating jobs? And how has that helped the other people who have served help our people? It hasn't. There is no correlation. So to me, the reason why they will say that is they're being exclusive. It's a good boys club. And that's what the problem we've had in Liberia, excluding other people. So when they say you don't have experience, imagine a Mr. Cummings who ran a multinational company, a bureaucracy that spanned through a first world country, a bureaucracy that ran through a first world country to a third world continent, and did that successfully and profited for his company. They're saying this man with that managerial skills is not one of them. That's really what they're saying. You're not part of us, so you can't come here, because nobody can tell you the skills that one will acquire working in the Liberian government that will help Liberian people that Mr. Cummings wouldn't possess. They'll only say, "Oh, he doesn't have government experience." They can't tell you how to translate. They cannot tell you how that government experience has helped Liberians, and they cannot tell you the skills he's lacking because he doesn't have the so-called experience. So I wanted to add my voice to that one.
Okay,
James.
Peter, thanks. Okay,
All right.
James.
Let me just add up. I mean, you guys are making very good points, like what Duke said. That what do they refer to as government experience? Politically, I do agree that you can have some experience, or some experience in government is an asset, added asset. But is that the only asset that one needs to become president of a country? I look at the presidency as the chief administrative officer of the state. If we put an attempt like what happens in the business sector of my business friend over there, when you become the overhead boss for any institution for that matter, well-versed and highly educated, even if you have not worked in that institution before, you can make research and establish the goals of that institution, and you'll be able to put those things together. Now, being in management secret, as we learned, we know that there are 5 major principles, what we call principle of management. And all these principles apply when you become the boss in any managerial institution. For example, primarily planning, organizing, staffing, managing, or we call it leading and controlling. These are principles as an educated man, especially with a man like Cummings, coming from the private sector, understands how things work. I do agree there are certain services, the dispensation of certain services may vary a little bit as regard private and public. I agree, but management-wise, they're all the same, because why? We have a goal. The goal is to achieve maximum productivity in anything they lay your hands on to do. Companies have been doing that. For those of the other guys who are highly educated, as you said, Cyrus, but yet they still feather in the idea like, oh, well, he doesn't have a governmental experience. I want to speak to the fact that what I've seen or playing in the political sector in Liberia is this. Liberia is not politically mature, even with the politicians.
After 170 plus years?
Yeah, we're not politically mature. I say this to say that I didn't add something out there. I work, the only political party that my signature ever went on to partake in of recent was the Progressive People Party. After the war, when others came back to Liberia, Monrovia City, from our various hamlets and things, I was privileged to get connected to Councillor Chipo. He took interest in me. When they were formulating the 5-man council, I just want to give a little historical picture so I can, frame what I'm trying to say here. The 5-man council was being formed. There was a seat
We'll give you minimum time to do that.
All right. There was a seat out there for, they call it the civil society. And who was supposed to occupy this seat? They threw it out to the political parties existing them. These guys were supposed to come together like the CPB stuff thing and pick one person to represent. It was through this limelight that I started working with some of those guys. So Councillor brought me in with some other young guys, J. Dwayne Brown, I still remember his name. We met some of our political heavyweights. Oscar Queer, I met him. Marcus Matthew, I met those guys. We sat together. I'm bringing this point up because there is a political hegemony. These politicians have been pushing the struggle for Liberia over the period of time, decades. I classify them as being orthodox politicians. There are certainly they will not part with. They are not willing to transfer leadership or even coax us into acquiring leadership when they know they are facing up. It is these same guys in Liberia today, they are still around and they are members of all the political parties. They are the ones that are spewing all the information that, oh, they may just come and he new to the system, doesn't have government experience, because they know that a Cummings government he will not do business as usual politically in Liberia. No, it's not going to be like that. The Liberia government will be reinvented.
Yeah.
It's going to erase the blackboard and we'll start a scratch. Now, corruption in Liberia, my brother, it is business as usual, meaning there are a lot of Liberians, all right, that get support from the illicit things that we do in the public sector, those ministries.
Are you Jimmy? Because we're discussing the issue of the relevance of government experience. Are you saying corruption is the government experience?
No, I'm just pointing this out that those guys that are fettering the idea of someone not having government experience, because I try to get in the mind, how can an educated guy look at, an eminent guy, highly versatile, career man, highly educated. You look at him and say, oh, this guy doesn't have government experience, so he can't work here. I'm trying to tell the audience why they are trying to idealize and bring this kind of thing to the scene as a means of discussion. It is because the way they've been trained to be the kind of politician. Any government, we saw it for the past 3 phases in our country after the war. Charles Taylor government came in, nothing happened with corruption. Judy Bryant came in, the early Johnson told her that she cannot fight corruption. So
okay, Jimo, I will give you the chance to deal with those specific issues, right? But Gabriel, Gabriel, before you chime in, I want to task you a little bit. As you look at the question of government experience that is being drumbeat, I want you to just to post that with your experience, just to post that against what it means to be an officer or director of an American corporation. Relative to the issue of the skills to govern a country.
Yeah, thank you. That is a great question. And I think I will pick bit and pieces from every one of the guys that spoke before me. So, and I will put this question to you guys. Can you show me any successful Liberian politician out of Liberia? Anybody that served in government and came out and was successful outside of government? Probably none. The next question to you guys. Would you say that Liberia politically is a successful country? Like if you want, you can start from 90 or you can go back to our inception. Would you say this is a failed state, like a semi-failed state that we've had all along?
I would say we've been going through some unusual challenges.
Exactly. So that leads me to my point here. And this whole narrative that they keep pushing that you must have experience in government in order to be able to manage it, to come in government and lead, right? If we can agree that this country, since inception, has never gotten up to where it's supposed to be. If you and I here can agree that the politicians in Liberia have failed successfully over and over and over and over, why would you think somebody coming from the outside would want to go be part of that system in order to come back to lead it? Like, does that make logical sense? It's like I'm looking at it, God forbid, I'm looking at a group of people that have failed, and you're telling me that in order to change them, I must be part of them to do that. That's the logical point I want to make to that.
Exactly my point.
Right? To go back to your first question. Running, I always make this argument to people that I talk to. Running a company on a global level and running a country are kind of like parallel. Now, why do I say that? And even if you think they weren't parallel, the way that Mr. Cummings ran Coca-Cola in Liberia, the way he dealt with the government, would you say Liberia government is more complex than the government of Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa? They're not. When it comes to level of complexity, they're not. If somebody as Mr. Cummings' stature was able to navigate those complexity in different countries, Nigerian people are very bold. We Liberians were passive, right? Nigerians are bold. The same thing with South African. If he was able to navigate through those political disagreements, whether to bring Coca-Cola here, there's a local brand here. How do you negotiate with all of those things? To negotiate with those various country directors and do that successfully. What make you think Liberia is an exception? What make you think that he can't do the same thing with Liberia? A CEO of a company is just as Mr. Wright pointed out, is just the same as the president of a country. You think strategically about the country. You think strategically about the country as you think strategically about the company that you run. Right. So I hope I was able to answer your question. But this narrative that we kind of pitch that, oh, Mr. Cummings need to come in, be a representative, a senator, and then come back to say to now be deemed as a qualified person, it does not make sense. If Liberia were any successful country like the Ghana or the the Rwanda, I would say maybe he will learn a thing or two from them by being part of them. But we have everybody that accuses guys of this experience thing, they have failed. There's not one Liberian in Liberia that I want to aspire to, or any of you would like to aspire to. Say this guy, I want to be like that guy. Never. So why would I want to join you in those failure as to come and get in a mud with you, and before you see me as qualified? That's the logical thing, way I want to look at it. And sometimes I don't think we apply logic. We just come out with narrative and without looking at it from a logical standpoint. And that's the argument that I want to leave with. So I will land for that.
Okay, so good point. I think it's a good segue to start. There was a question that started this week, I think, on one of the talk shows. Somebody called me and said that there were some people on Spoon Network who were making insinuations that Cummings was entangled in financial misgivings because of his being on a board of directors of Chevron and others. That's part of the question I would throw into you, Gabriel, because you are vice president in a bank in America, so you understand some of the corporate issues. I know same will apply to Duke.
Can I answer that question quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, another thing that I think we fall victim to is just how that statement was out there. If it was any of you, that are on this panel, what would you do? You'll go do your research, right? Even if it's just Googling, right? Go look up Google. Any company they mention, go look up the company. But for me, I've been following Mr. Cummings for a long time, so I know the board that he sits on. Chevron, he sits on Chevron's board, right? There's also another company called Pan Africa Capital. Right? Pan Africa Capital is kind of like a private equity company. They invest $20 million into IB Bank, right? They have $20 million investment into IB Bank. I think that was done in 2000. I think way back. They invested $20 million into IB Bank. That's how they're affiliated with it, right? Mr. What's his name? Cashin. I think it's Steve Cashin.
Steve Cashin.
Right. He's the owner of that of Pan African Capital, right? And Mr. Cummings also is on the board of Pan African Capital. So I don't the whole narrative that he was on Earth. This is as somebody private investments investing in the thing that he deems important to him.
What is wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. Like you and I would do the same thing. There's nothing. It's just I don't know how you So from somebody who works in in a big corporation, if eventually you retire or even while you're working there, due to certain limitations that the company can place on you, you can make certain investments, right? Before you even do that, you have to get approval, seek approval from your company, like especially in the banking world or the investment world. You can't do that.
Conflict of interest issue,
right? They track every one of that. So for most of the CEOs, the CFO, once you get to the director level, most of those people put their money away until they come out of that, then they start investing aggressively as they want to, because at this point, they're free to do that without any conflict of interest, right? So those affiliation, the board that Mr. Cummings sits on, those are companies that he's part of, and those companies make investment in other, especially the Pan-African. I will urge your audience and everybody here to look into that. They make significant investment into other African country, from Kenya to Liberia. Their investment in IB Bank, Data Bank. They invested in Data Bank in Ghana as well. So this is a company that is creating jobs. They invest in other African countries, and they're creating jobs all across Africa. And Mr. Cummings just happened to be, part of it and sits on their board. So there is nothing wrong with that.
So those are basic. Those are some of the strong attributes of Mr. Cummings anyway. His
right.
So that brings me to my next question, right?
Well, can I add one point?
You want to add to that? I'll let you do that. Go ahead, Peter.
So I want to come from a layman's perspective, right? So Gilbert just gave you a nuanced information on those who work in the banking sector. Okay. Mr. Cummings is a businessman. We live in a capitalistic world. So Mr. Cummings sits on the board of Chevron, other companies, right? The Abermouth Loan Company. Let's assume he's sitting in all these companies that
Africare,
yep. Say he sits on these companies on the board of these companies, and these companies negotiated a deal that helped their stockholders, their shareholders in their company. That's what capitalism is. Was it Mrs. Cummings' responsibility to say, oh no, this deal doesn't work for this company, so it hurts Liberia? As a private citizen, let me give you an example. If my brother's I'm a coach. If my brother and my mom is on one team and I'm on the other team, and my livelihood depends on me beating that team, we're going to run up the score. And I'm going to hug and kiss her after the game is over.
Yeah,
when we're in competition, as long as I'm not cheating or purposely trying to harm them, if it's how the game is played, I'll give you one quick example. It was, and I don't even like Donald Trump, but I thought this was a gotcha moment. It was when he was running against Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton tried to get him at one of the debates. She said, you didn't pay any taxes. And Donald Trump says, yeah, great. I didn't pay any taxes because of the system that you created. Go change the system. I just play by the rules that you set. So what I'm saying is, those who are supposed to be stewards of our country and our legislature, is their job to make sure people don't take advantage of us business-wise. You can't then say, oh, this person who sat on the board and this company got the better of Liberia 10 years ago, and you should have done something. That argument is so unintelligent. And for people to sit on a reputable network like Spoon and spew it and no one have a pushback on them is kind of embarrassing a little bit.
So it comes from being uninformed. It comes from trying to find something to talk about that you really don't know anything about. Look, I'm free to say this, but at some point in time, I worked alone and actually managed Coca-Cola plans, right? In terms of for the shareholders, for the corporate executive. There's a lot of rules that govern, right, when it comes to investments, when it comes to top corporate executives. That's why some of the compensation, right, is based on shares, right, equities in companies, right? Those are things that drive them. What I think is happening here is we've come into a political environment where it's no longer about substance, it's no longer about the truthfulness, and it's all about politics. And as Gabriel rightfully said, and Peter, stated to simplify things. Look, if you want to know the facts, go ahead and research. Mel of Mr. Cummings is not in hiding; his records are out there, and you can be able to take a look at it for yourself and pass your own judgment. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay, Duke, thanks for that, and thanks for the. So it brings me to this question, right? A few weeks ago, probably 2 weeks, a United States ambassador in Liberia made some damning accusations against the legislature. He said he had taken a tour around the country, and he noticed that the institutions, hospitals, clinics, they were underserved, Not only that, they were underserved, but budgetary allotments that have been approved for them were not forthcoming. He went on to say that, in fact, in the budget, the legislature allots for itself $65 million, and the allotment for other public service institutions were literally minimal compared to what they allot for themselves. So my interest was when the president pro tem, Senator Chier, decided to rebuff the ambassador. And his big argument was that not that they did not allot the money and use it for, they didn't allot the money for themselves, but his argument was that, in fact, the ambassador should have looked around enough. He would have found out that some of the money was being used by the legislature to do projects for the people. Now, they honor our laws, on the Constitution. The legislature, and that's a bad practice that I don't know whether it was adopted under President Sirleaf or not, where the legislature get involved in implementing government projects, but it's completely illegal. It's only the executive branch of government that's responsible for implementing government projects. I mean, I follow another report where they are double paying themselves in the legislature. But here's what I'm coming to. In spite of these inadequacies, there is a perception in Liberia that for you to want to be president of Liberia, you have to show that you have done something for the people. I mean, a private person who ascribes to the presidency because he thinks that he can bring the leadership that will be able to manage the country's resources for the greater good, for the greater number. There is a sense amongst people that for us to even consider this man, we're asking, what has he done for us? That's what lends credence to aspirants in elections going and dividing food and all that, because it sells very well to people, even though there's no law that requires you to do that. So let's think about that. One may argue that, for example, Alex Cummings need not have a record of what he has been doing for the individual Liberian people, if that is a qualifying requirement from their perspective, and we can argue that. But do you know of anything that Mr. Cummings or his foundation has done to enhance the life's value of people in Liberia, whether before he decided to be president or even during the period that he has been contesting the position of presidency?
Guess what I say to that? And that's a brilliant question, by the way, Pete. I think, and Gabe, I think we tackled that issue on Sky FM a couple of months ago. So the first thing, one of the things that I remain vocal about is that this notion that, public servants or people should have something to show that they've done for the people as a qualification for leadership in our country is absurd. And I go back to my initial response when I spoke earlier. That alone that should not be a qualifier, because if we were taking into consideration and we look at all the politicians who have distributed beggar rights, they've gone and built hand pumps and wells, what is it quantified to? How did it benefit the people of Liberia? We are still, again, facing tough economic conditions because those things don't work. And so, I don't give credence to those people. And I think what we're doing is trying to redefine the way in which our people think and try to put, messages out there that will better educate them. But if we must answer, let's say this, Mr. Cummings, I can brag, is possibly the only politician in Liberia or somebody that's actually aspiring from office that actually invested his own financial capital in the country. Let's quantify it. Let's go and look at the George Weah and the Joseph Boyka and all of these. But how many of them have taken their own money to invest in Liberia? We start with Ebola. When the country was facing a tough period during Ebola, Alex Cummings took to the Cummings Foundation over $500,000 in supplies, right, to assist the government fight against Ebola. Let's look at the recent COVID situation. We were all here when we saw that government hospitals did not have oxygen tank. They didn't have beds. People were lying outside. What did Mr. Cummings do? He didn't just put money there, though. He went on a counter tour, assessing the healthcare facilities, government infrastructure, private facilities, to determine, right, what kind of help the Cummings Africa Foundation could provide. And when he came back, based upon his assessment, he saw that medication, oxygen tank, beds, and other stuff were those critical items that were needed, even in government hospital, through the Cummings Foundation. more than pretty close to $200,000 was actually spent in putting those resources in government-run hospitals. Can you imagine? Right? Those are little things. We go to universities, from putting computer labs in universities, from providing scholarships for Liberian students through the Cummings Africa Foundation, by tackling the issue of maternal care, our farmers, agriculture. Those are things that he has been part of in the country, been helping. And it's not because of the politics, not because he wants to seek the office of the president, but Mr. Cummings will be the first to tell you. And on several occasions, he has said,
Look,
Our CEO, Mr. Cummings,
this was during COVID
have
that
come to
first, help came in for the people there. So he will be the first to tell you that, number one, we shouldn't use that as a way to be able to sell, leadership to our people.
but Duke,
yes,
Duke, where I see you talking plenty, it's easy to talk. I'll let you talk again, but I just pull this stuff also. Probably we can validate what you say.
yeah, go ahead and put it in.
the Riverview community regarding travel time. And today we have come as a humanitarian organization. The Cummings Africa Foundation is a humanitarian organization born of politics. So in these troubling times, we feel that our people need help. And beyond that, there's a need that we all share the little that we have. So we will be identifying today with Claratown. From here, we'll be going to Dukutown, West Point, Cinco, and we will be donating something around 700 bags of rice, some oil, as you can see, super gari, and some detergent to help our people fight the dirty coronavirus.
Yeah. I recall that because
our CEO, Mr. Cummings, have come to identify.
All right. I think it stopped now. Okay. So that was.
Duke, I just thought I should put some
Yeah.
pins on what you were saying.
That was when the government had informed our people that they needed to stay indoors, mandatory, and they were given money by our international partners to provide food for the people. And none of those monies or the food items that they claimed to have purchased made it to the ordinary people. So Mr. Cummings, through the Cummings Africa Foundation, saw the need to step in to help. Again, this was another weakness on the part of the government. Finally, so that the people can come in. I led an effort on the grassroots end, thanks to ANC Global, where young people were going into those communities from a grassroots perspective when it comes to COVID. Through the help of Dwalu Akazu, who's one of the leading supporters and helpers of Mr. Cummings, and through the ANC Global, where these young people were going to the local community hospitals, providing them buckets, providing them soap, providing them bleach, to providing them some of those critical things that they needed to be able to combat, this issue of COVID in the local communities as well. So these are things that even more that he has done and continues to do. Entrepreneurship, he has invested money in startups in that country, businesses in that country. There are a lot of young Liberians who are venturing into business that Mr. Cummings has been able to financially support their endeavors as well. So those are things that he has done. Yet and still, I believe that it shouldn't be, those qualifiers that are used to determine leadership. What should be, the right way to decide who can actually drive the narrative? Is qualifications? It's about who's better suited to, provide economic success. Who can be able to provide jobs for our people, looking at all of the challenges that they face, who is in the best position possible to provide the kind of leadership, and if we look at everybody that's in the race, that's contesting or running to be a president, we can make the argument that Mr. Cummings got all of those qualities, and he is the only one in the race that can drive, our private sector success.
And let me ask something there, Cyrus. You see people who make these kind of, drive these kind of narratives, they speak to the fact that our country, as I said earlier on, is politically immature. This is business as usual. The electorates expect from a potential candidate who wants to be president. And Duke has just outlined a whole lot of work that he has done, and there are even more to that. But I just want to bring this in. Not many of the electorates, all right, are familiar with these kind of jobs. So the marketing mechanism, which is the ANC to sell its political leader, I spoke with one of them before in the chat room, ANC Global. Guys, we need a platform. We need to market Cummings. There's a lot on my own that I can find out. Not many people will go out there to do the kind of research that I do, and any one of us on this panel would do. So let us go there and do the kind of research, ANC people, have a spokesperson, have the people with the tenacity to voice out and develop a platform. We need to market our candidate. That was my suggestion. I'm still waiting for that. Just imagine if we had about...
Okay, all right. All that stuff about your research and your ANC people is not good enough for me today. I need you to answer the questions. We have some questions coming from people on the who are watching that are coming up. Do you guys see them?
No, maybe.
I think this McCarthy's. If you're watching, if you can watch from the screen, you see it. McCarthy's statement was in response to what Duke was saying earlier about. If you got anybody want to chime in on that.
So let me go there quick, and then Pete can comment because I know he has a long perspective piece since he wrote that while I was speaking. Look, I said this, and Pete and myself had this conversation before coming up. You know, I just came back from Liberia. I would not waste any of my energy trying to argue things on social media. Guess why? Because there's a different perspective when it comes to what the realities are on ground versus what people see in cyberspace. I know that because I went to several counties. I was actually in the markets, mobilizing and interacting with voters. This notion that the realities of Liberian politics against Mr. Cummings is one of the biggest fallacies I've ever heard. Another thing I believe is a fallacy is the notion that, you know, Mr. Cummings' message is not selling well. That's inaccurate. The people know who Mr. Cummings is. But, you know, we have to understand that the fight we are in, you're trying to take down a structure of recycled politicians who feel entitled to leadership in that country. They will fight you. It is not an easy fight. And so they have their own narrative and their own spins. But the reality is, the most that I heard interacting with voters in that country, they will tell you, you know, we're upset, everything that's going on, we don't even know who to vote for. They will tell you that before they even tell you that I will specifically vote for this particular person. So I think it is far from the truth. Now, while it is true that in the Liberian settings, our people have been accustomed to taking politicians and being brainwashed due to all of those mediocre things that's been done, the truth here is we cannot continue to follow that particular narrative. That's why we're pushing to change, right? And so better messaging, engaging the people on the grounds, having those one-on-one conversations. I was in town halls with these people, young people at District 16, Simba Bridge area, over about 40 young persons we engaged in River Cess, Nima County, Bon County, Margibi County, District 17. We did that. You understand me? So I think it is far from the truth. And honestly, when I left Liberia, I left with the utmost confidence that Mr. Cummings can actually pull the win up in Liberia if we continue to build on what we have and do an aggressive form of mobilization, which I will talk about later on, since I know when I was in charge of that process, we'll go there. But I will yield to Peter because I think he has a brilliant point. This is something that he has actually made some strong arguments on. Pete, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so two things. I think it's insulting to our people when you say our people don't care about substance or who has the best idea. That's not true. Just like Duke, our two was in Liberia probably 2 months ago now. They do care about who can help them. They do. Do they take things because their basic needs haven't been met? So do they take charity? Yes, they do, because they need it. But they do care who can provide the best life for them. Second point, philanthropy is not a hallmark for leadership. And we're not going to sit here and sell it as if it is. I listened to Joel Howard Taylor talk about how they need more money because they want to hand out more money to people who ask. That's a person who should not be in leadership. You don't create the environment for people to help themselves. That's what you're supposed to do in the legislature, right? Create the environment for which people can help themselves. And then you don't have to shell out money as if you're some Santa Claus or manna from heaven that you're going to share out to the people. This is my most important point. The third point. Mr. Cummings have done more for Liberia with his own personal money than all the politicians since 1960 combined. I'm going to say it again. He has done more. I made a list. Just a little research will help. I'm glad that Gabriel said this, right? These people who were successful in failures. I thought that line was hilarious. It's true. Gets to set the rules and the perimeters for which people can help our country. If you look at the list and things he's done, because it hasn't been publicized and he don't pound his chest every time he did it, doesn't mean he hasn't done it. A little research will help. Mr. Cummings has done more to help the Liberian people, although that shouldn't be the criterion which says if he's prepared to lead or not. Okay, but you do have to have some skin in the game. I'm saying he's done more than everyone combined. Not one project, not two projects, not three projects, up to 35 different projects with real money, his money. He's been doing it for a while, which is why he wants to be the president, so he is able to do more, but he's able to generate money using the country's money and turn the country into a business. That's his whole point. But he's been doing it. He's done more. I want to belabor this point. He's done more than everyone combined. The George Weah, the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the you name them. Okay, the Joseph Boyka, he would have done for all the things he has done. I think Joseph Boyka donated a hand pump and a zinc boat. He could donate $1 million. The money that he spent in Liberia could create and donate $1 million one of them zinc boats that Joseph Boyka sat on. Okay, the one that Henry Costa said cost $85,000 that actually cost $8.50. That boat.
How you know the price?
Because it's zinc. I know how much it costs.
Don't denigrate the vice president's gift. I think it's the gesture, and that boat was sent to River Cess to cross the Cess River. I donated I think 100 life jackets about 5-6 years ago, so I know the need.
Congratulations!
That boat has enormous need on the Cess River that is well over 8.
I'm glad you did the life jackets because I would have asked the viewing public to send money because that boat is a zinc boat and is probably going to need the life jacket. He's done more, much more than all those people combined by tenfold.
Tell us some of the things that Mr. Cummings has done. I know Gabriel touched on a few entrepreneur conference.
Here's what I did, right?
Give us some specifics.
Yeah, I actually sent you a list while we were talking.
Well,
right?
you're right here. Yeah. So read the list for the audience.
I actually sent you a list, and I posted it in the Facebook group. Right?
Yeah. How did you send me that list? I can find it and post
I think I texted to you.
You texted.
Okay.
Let me look for it.
So it goes back, and someone said something about you can't just do it during election time. No, he did it way before election time. I'm talking about from 2009, right? Pay wise fees for 2,322 students in Liberia from 21 different schools. The cost US $106,000. Okay. Establish a scholarship financial aid program with the University of Liberia. He did that. Okay. Liberia, $1 million, 34 times student scholarships. He did that. Okay. He partnered with AMU University and provided scholarships and financial aid for those kids that went to AMU. He did that. Liberian, $168,000. 18 Mass Association beneficiary 12 full scholarship for those kids. He did that. I can go on and on. Okay. The Isaac David Memorial High School, he donated $2,000 for them. The Sammy Dudley Memorial High School, $1,000 for those kids. He He worked with our people in Liberia to foster the excellence in healthcare, help people go abroad to get educated. He did that. The CFA supported the Basel ELWA chapter to send U.S. science students to study medicine at American University in La Gambia. He did that. Provided computers and furniture to enhance learning capacity at the student at St. Clement University, 15-seat computer lab. He did that. He provided 350K a vote generator to BWI. He did that. Cost of that $67,000 US dollars. He did that. Tuition payment for 8 law students at UL. He did that. He designed a publication on Nearby County Community College yearbook for the first graduating class. Total project expenditure $8,000. He did that. I can keep going. This list is long.
So did I hear you? Did I hear you, Peter, mention that Mr. Cummings put up a computer lab at Joel Howard's school? Because I heard her say that in a meeting one day where I was sitting in 2017. I think it's called Clement University or Clement College.
Yep. Yeah. So the list that I was going down is long. It's about 38 different items on that list, right? So what you've seen over the years since 2009 is a philanthropist. And this is what a lot of CEOs and successful people have done. Once you become established, and he've said this over and over, to whom much is given, much is expected. So what Mr. Cummings is doing is he's giving back. When you sit and talk to the man, he tells you off the bat, for these people, many of them, their presidency is the destination. For me, it's just a tool to do what I really want to do, which is help Liberian people. Because so much has been
Okay, Peter. I think I will hold you on that, and then we'll go to the next question because we're getting to the middle of our hour. The next hour, we will jump into the issue of electability, and then we'll do some specific. But what I want to also talk about this that relates to Cummings' attribute, and I think it's overlooked, is what does his international appeal, both in relations to his relationship with international political leaders and international business leaders, how does that bring value to Liberia as someone if he becomes a president, vis-a-vis those who do not have such appeals at all?
Yeah. If you guys don't mind, let me take this head on. That is another brilliant question, and this is something I think we've looked at. In life, in general, your relationships matters, right? Sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, right? That gets you in the door or gets you somewhere, right? And I think the first question that I answered initially, I talked about Mr. Cummings serving on several boards, the Chevron, Clark Atlanta University, Pan-African Capital, Africare. There's another organization that I left out. I think it's called Vibranium Capital. It just started. I just end up to stumble upon it. Now, I want to take this piece by piece, right? To be able to be appointed on those boards, especially, I will start with Chevron. When he was on Chevron board, they put him in charge of the audit committee. The audit committee in an organization is the person who oversees the internal audit. So the CFO oversees the internal audit, and then the audit person who's on the board oversees that entire audit. There's an internal audit and there's the external auditor, right? There's a level of skill sets that you bring. That's one. So with Chevron, they were looking at Mr. Cummings' role as at Coca-Cola, his legal, human resources, community engagement, and most importantly, strategic planning. Strategic planning for organization is somebody who plans the company's long-term vision as well as its short-term vision in terms of this is where we're going with this company. This is how we're going to compete. These are the market we're going to compete in. So that's that, right? The same thing with Clark Atlanta University. Clark Atlanta University, he was the board chair. So if you guys are familiar with nonprofits, or not just nonprofit universities, the board chair of university sets the direction of what the university go. They advise the president of that university. Say, these are the type of student you should bring in. These are investment that this is where you should go. But most importantly, if you want to grow your endowment, these are the company institutional investors that you should invest with that aligns with you, right? Now, why am I making this connection? And in terms to answer your question, for Mr. Cummings, right, to be able to sit on these boards, all of those organizations were able to identify the skill sets, right, that he has in his tenure at Coca-Cola, right? And you might say, how does that, once he become president, what does that mean for, his relationship? How does that benefit Liberia? And I will take you to the third organization, which is Pan-African. I think I mentioned that before. One of the most important thing in life in general, like you and I right now, we're able to sit on this platform and talk to each other in the audience, is self-actualization. What do I mean by that? Self-actualization, people can say you don't need money to be happy, which is true. But guess what, my friend? You need a little bit to take care of yourself, your family, and everything else. How do you get money to do that? You provide your service to a company and they pay you in return for that. What does that mean? That means you need a job, whichever way you want to put it. You need a job. You contribute to society and society pays you for it. This is what Mr. Cummings has been doing with Pan-African, overseeing Pan-African as a board member on that organization. I can list the number of companies that they've invested in. So imagine him becoming president and tapping into this relationship. Education is another important thing, but I would just leave that on the side. Imagine Mr. Cummings becoming president. He's already oversee the investment of Pan-African, $20 million investment in IB Bank. Do we know how many jobs or branches IB Bank has in Liberia? Do we know how many jobs those branches in those various counties are creating? That's one aspect of it. That's the private sector aspect of it. I want you to also look at the education piece of it. Clark Atlanta is one of the bigger universities in Atlanta, Georgia, right? One of the most important things in a nation that determines whether that country succeeds or not is education.
Good quality education.
Right, quality education. And if you can see some of the work that Pete, Duke, and Mr. Wright was pointing out, his work is heavily educational based, right? Mostly investing in education because he see the lapse in education there. Since the 80s, our education system has never been the same. So he sees that. Now imagine somebody like this becoming president. Who do you think he's going to tap into to say, hey, I'm trying to revamp our country's education? He already has a board. He was already a board chair. He can even model universities of Liberia, the various universities and colleges after what he was doing at Clark Atlanta University. So this is just a snippet of what it is. This is just a snippet. Some of the money that he gave out, I would just say this and I'll end. Some of the money he gave out during the Ebola, not Ebola crisis, the COVID. Some of it wasn't, everything wasn't from him, but he was able to leverage his relationships. Right.
So he has that name recognition. He can reach out to people. I know personally that he has a close relationship with Cyril Ramaphosa,
right,
who was the president of South Africa. Yeah.
Right. So I will leave it as and let other comments.
Okay. So guess what? We've done the first hour focusing on the mayor, Alexander Cummings, from different perspective. I know we'll still deal with the mayor, but on the next hour, we're going to take a short break. And we're going to come on the other end. We'll be talking about his electability. What's required to have him elected? What are some of the impediments and all that? So, guys, thanks a lot for this first section. I think it was super nice. Just catch yourself a breath. If you're close to a cup of coffee, get it. We'll come back on the other side, and then we'll begin the other discussion.
Now we are go. Amen. Sevens are crying, oh. Market women are crying, oh. Now we are go. We tire, oh. Now we are go. Innocent people are dying, oh. The students are staying home. Now we are go. We tire, oh. Now we are go. Now we are go. Now we are go. Now we are go. We tire, oh. Now we are go. Now we are go. Now we are go. We tire, oh. Now we are go. Yeah, now we are go. We tire, oh. Now we are go. Hey, go, go, go. Go, go, go. Mwah, mwah. Now we are mwah. Hey, go, go, go. Go, go, go. Mwah, mwah. Now we are mwah. Liberia is bleeding, no. The people are suffering, no. Now we are go. We tire, now we are go. We tire with the hunger, we tire eating curry, oh. Now we are go. We tire, now we are go. Musicians are crying, oh. Hospitals are empty, oh. Now we are go. We tire, oh. Now we are go. Now we are go. Go, 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 go. Yeah. We tire, oh. Now we are go. Now we are go. Go, 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 go. Now we are tired suffering. Suffering, oh. Now we are go.
I tell you, we tired. I'm sure we should really go. Okay, guys, welcome back. If you're just joining us or you've been with us, welcome again to Election Central. In this second phase of our main discussions, we're going to be talking about Mr. Cummings' electability. Again, as a matter of intro, this week and next week, we are taking on the issue of the two key candidates in the opposition, Alexander Cummings of the CPP and Joseph Bima Boakai, Ambassador Boakai of the Unity Party. We're talking today about Mr. Cummings' suitability for the position of president and his electability. We've done a fairly good favor to suitability in the first half, so we're going to begin the second half with his electability. We use the same format next week to discuss Ambassador Joseph Boakai. I'm going to make an effort to reach out to Mr. Boakai's supporters so we can have a vibrant a balanced discussion about our former vice president. So, gentlemen, welcome back to this session. And like I said, we're going to be talking about Mr. Cummings' electability. So let me start off first with you guys who have been back in Liberia much recently, who sat with the teams there, figure out what they're doing, and then I will come with some specific concerns and questions. So first, the question that I will place out to you guys is, what is the game plan? What is the game plan? What's happening in Liberia?
All right, Pete, you want me to go ahead? Okay, so let me just say that, you know, when I went Liberia, I was opportune to work across several structures. I actually went in the counties, you know, looking at the ANC structures and talking to the people and just looking at, you know, the things that we had in place. So I left confident. I think that, and you know, the CPP chairman made that assertion too on the closing argument on Friday when he was our guest on that show, that when it comes to the political parties in Liberia, the CPP, the ANC's got the most activities in terms of the counties, and that's for a fact. That's something I can verify. That's something I can confirm. They're doing a great job. Now, would I love to see a lot more in terms of engagement? Yes. But if we're just looking at presence in the different areas, I think, you know, compared to other political parties, There's more visibility, than the Unity Project, to be honest with you, on there as well. So it's great. I think that the strategy now is, number one, they're moving into announcing Fixer 2, and then turning in shifting to an aggressive grassroots campaign that's focused on messaging, voters education, the get out the vote process, targeting several strategic key areas to make sure that we're making the impact, the necessary impact when it comes to educating people about Mr. Cummings. But overall, I felt confident. I did some work. I did some community engagement, door to door, our conversations and recruitment. We call them canvassing in the states. I went to different counties. Went to Bond County. Went to Nimba County. Went Riverside, GB County. I was in District 17, in Douala Market, Pinsway Railline Market. I went on different university campuses and stuff, and just networking and connecting with young people across the aisle. So, but from an engagement perspective, I think we're poised to be a little more aggressive as election approaches. But I'm a little excited about the work they're doing and the possibility of actually expanding in other areas as well.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, so like Duke, I too was there and went to different places, but not just me individually. So if you were to ask me what's going on the ground, I'm excited about what's going on. There always much to be desired, but it's all about visibility, and I think that they're doing a pretty good job doing what they call Jehovah style. They're going from door to door. Their teams. I actually went to a few high schools and a few events with those people, just as Duke did, and I think it's important to know that this narrative about um, people want to be, yeah, this narrative about people wanting the unity party or any party is not true, and we need to keep mentioning that because when you go on the ground, first of all, people are not on Facebook lives. They just can't afford it because of how the hardships in the country. And secondly, they are listening to see why you this time. Their eyes are wide open. It's not like before. Oh, vote for this guy, or vote for him. Or a musician says this. No, they ask questions. They listen to you intently. And this is why I said it was disrespectful when McCarthy said, "People don't do that." That's a person who doesn't know what's going on. Has spent way too much time on propaganda on social media. Our people literally wants to know how you're going to create a job. How's it going to affect me and my family? Things are hard. How am I going to get money? What's the government going to do for me? They want to know that. And once you start speaking that language, they intently listen, especially when you can correlate that with actual verifiable truth. And you start telling them this is how this man plans on creating jobs. This is how it's going to affect you. This is why this skill set that this man has translate to what we need in Liberia. When you start speaking like that, you're going to hear that truth.
So Peter, there's a common refrain in Liberia. People will say that Mr. Cummings is not resonating with the Liberian people. Based on what you're saying that's not true.
That's not a common thing in Liberia. Those are people. That is so far from reality. You're not going to find anyone in Liberia who's doing that. And here's how you can prove it. Because I'm a scientific-minded person, so hopefully most people, we need verifiable facts, right?
Yeah.
He has been selling this for a long period of time. If it was true that he was not resonating, forget your own scientific poll that you just go on the street and just asking random people. That's not how polls are conducted, by the way, because the purpose of poll is for predictability. It's to predict future behavior. So polls need to be scientific. They could have easily gone on the ground and show video. They would have been done that, but it's not true. These people intently knows Mr. Cummings. The only pushback you get from our people on the ground is they look at opposition as one, and they say, "Why are you guys fighting? We're confused." That's the extent of them not being sure. Nothing more than that. If someone was to tell you, "Oh, definitely they're not CDC," for the majority of them, but they're confused as to why, because people have sold them so much lies about Cummings being greedy. He doesn't want, he says he's not going to take second to people. They just polluted their minds with propaganda and lies because they have nothing tangible to sell our people. And that's what confuses them. So they're waiting for them to be told why. They're looking for the why at this point. It is not true that he's not resonating with the people. That's a complete lie. If he's not resonating with the people, Joseph Boyka is negatively resonating with the people because it's not on their list.
So but you see, Pete, just to add on quick, I said this a few minutes ago, and I'll continue to say this. What we need to do is stop listening to the social media propaganda, start speculating, and either go on ground and listen to the facts. My perspective about Liberia is completely changed, and the voters change. I have videos. I'm going to give the videos to my people in ANC Global just for training purpose. I'm telling you, there are no point in time when I was in Liberia that I felt that the name Cummings was not resonating, or that Joseph Boyka had this kind of control of the voting population. Absolutely not. I'm being honest with you. The most you will hear people, they'll talk about the frustration with the opposition. Why you guys, didn't come together and this, that, the rest of it. But that's where you have to, that's where you have to be able to talk to them, right?
Yeah, pardon me. I'm allowing Makadi to engage with you guys. That's why I put that.
I have no doubt that if the election was based solely on the best idea, Cummings would be noticed, but he has served the most national leadership. So you see, this is what we call a fallacy. So he struggled to emerge as a national leader in the CPP. How? Where are the facts? Look, we're educated people. Let's bring data. Let's bring the facts. Let's quantify these things. Let's stop talking in circles, right? You're a businessman who worked in corporate. All of us got pretty close, about 40 years of working in corporate America here. So you're talking to intelligent people who've actually worked on the high level, right? So we know what we're speaking of. So don't but let me just say the truth here. Let me stick to the substance here so that the listeners can get an idea of what we're speaking of. Look, I speak facts. I have been on this journey, right? Post 2017. I went from being out of Liberia for a long time to going back Liberia. And actually being I sent you some pictures on WhatsApp out there. When you see Mr. Cummings struggle to become a national leader while leading the CPP, then it tells me you have no idea what you're talking.
Zero.
Yeah, this is the man that led the collaborating political party to one of the most important wins when it comes to any political merger in that country. Any mergers we've had in the past, this is the most success that we've seen. Here's a man who he showed leadership by keeping the CPP intact. The CPP did not collapse under Cummings' leadership. Not at all. Where he look, if you remember, those were the days wherein the people now who are claiming or playing the blame game threw everything at him. And he got Oyombi Kanga elected. He got Delon elected. He won more seats for the ANC. Even the Unity Party that struggled when Joseph Boyka took over that party post Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Finally, Joseph Boyka had a win in his column because of Alexander Cummings' leadership. So when people sit out and say these things, where are the facts? Here's the fact. The fact shows that this man, as face of the CPP, and all he has done, the name recognitions did. People know who Alex Cummings is, not even in Monserrato, though. I went to Bond County, and the summer inside Bond County, I saw several people wearing Alex Cummings t-shirt with his picture on it. You bring in and talk, he's in the national conversation. People will tell you that they don't want Boyka and the repeat of the Unity Party. So, we need to quantify these things and stop just throwing reckless assertions out there, especially when we have our own political agenda and stuff. If Alex Cummings is not a recognizable face, why are you fighting him? If Alex Cummings was so unimportant and did not have the kind of political leverage, why are you insulting Charlene Bromsky all on social media? Come on, man. So the facts are low. I love to speak facts. Like Gabriel said, we believe in data. This is what drives decision making in the corporate settings. Not because somebody said a word in corporate America over
Say
we're
they made.
over the age of technology and stuff and saying here, come on, man. We're talking facts. You know, we're talking facts here. We're talking about actual facts, not posting on social media. I was there. I was running 100 and some more temperature with like malaria in Douala Market talking to people. And I know the conversations we're having. So I wouldn't want to. But look, the fact here is Alexander Cummings is a pivotal piece when it comes to the transformation of Liberia. And you know what? Watch it. After the announcement of his running mate, you will see a complete shift when it comes to the politics in that country and even the CPP. And some of these people who are talking, you know, are the same people that wouldn't be paid dues for the Unity Party. I think all of us are due paying members here. And financially, we've invested our resources here. But you know, so let's not fall into the trap. Is Gabriel, you want to say something? You go ahead.
Okay, Gabriel, before you go, maybe I should say something that you probably will need to combine in addition to what you are going to say. So I hear all the things Peter is saying and also Duke. But here's something, and I too live and work in Liberia. I'm here at least for a couple of months now. So there are certain perceptions that are there, right? For example, there is a perception that Alex Cummings is not approachable, right? And that's coming from a lot of people who are in good social class who would like to be a part of what Alex is doing, but they do not see a corridor to do that. How can they do that? There's also talks coming from internally in the group that, in fact, Ellis's focus is on the newer people. For example, the team Cummings made out of Ambassador Louis Brown, Ambassador Toga McIntosh, that in fact the emphasis is on them and the party hierarchy is on the peripheral. That the focus of Cummings' work and attention is at the office behind the Cardinal School there, and there's not much happening at the party headquarters. So I'm asking this question not to make you guys combative, but for you to be fully aware that elections is about numbers, so that even people who may have false perception, those views, those numbers matter for us. How do you address these concerns? Whether be it that from your side you think is not true or not, but if it were, how do you fix it?
So I think that's the political side, and Gabriel is mainly focused. That Gabriel, you want to take?
I just wanted to make a statement on the previous comment.
So add to that, Gabriel.
Yes. So is it possible you can bring up that previous comment?
The last comment,
the second to last,
the long one.
Yeah, there's a piece I want to. So if you read the first sentence, he said, "I have no doubt that if this election was based solely on the best idea and the ability to adequately govern, Cummings would be the choice." Full stop right there. Right?
Yeah, but the point he's making is from the electability standpoint, voting is not based on that. That's the point he's trying to make. So there are nuances, there are perceptions that go beyond that.
What are the data?
Is that not a fair shake?
And that's the narrative that we're trying to change here, because that's what it should be about, right? And this is why election is about, right? You're trying to change perception. He said, if this was about the best ideas and who should lead Liberia, which is exactly what we need. This is. Do you
know that the Liberian people more or less agree with that, even as far back as before the 2017 elections? Let me say something, right? Have you heard a phrase before the election in 2017? You went to somebody and said, "Look, what do you think about Cummings? I mean, will you vote for him?" They say, "Well, they haven't voted yet." They say, "I think this man is the best man, but he came late," even though they have not voted.
It depends on who you're asking and where you're asking that question. If you go to District 17, you go Hotel Africa Road, and you ask people the response.
I live up that road near the beach.
Well, I live there too, and I'll tell you, I was on that road, but I'm going back there pretty soon, right? I think it depends, but Gabriel, go ahead. I don't want to take away from it, so I apologize.
And my point, the point that I was trying to make here, this is what it should be about, despite what we believe in our country. And yes, this is not how things are in Liberia, right? But this is what we're trying to change. This is what election is about. Yes, you might believe he is the right person if it were based on the right idea and the person who should lead the country to where it ought to be.
That's what
Right?
you need.
Right. That's what you need. And even though you believe that, but because you feel, I'm just using you as an example, because you feel that, based on the other, allegation that they're throwing on there, he may not be able to, hypothetically, right?
Hmm.
This is why the campaign is happening right now, to be able to change your narrative that despite that, yes, he is the guy. But if you were having any doubt based on any of those other things that he listed, this is why we're trying to change it. And this is what, so that should have been a full stop. This is who we want to run the country. Yes, your perception and other views might cloud your judgment in terms of thinking rationally about what you want for a country and who should lead the country forward, right? This is why we're here to change that. The narrative that we are here to change is that this person be beyond him being capable of running that country and bringing it to where it ought to be. There's a lot more to him that you don't see, that
Yo,
meets the eye. Yeah.
Let me add. So, again, let's go back to perception, right? I was at the party headquarters. I was at Mr. Cummings' office. Someone said, Mr. Cummings, whoever, you said the perception is he's not approachable. Tell me, just a few days ago, I saw a couple of people post Mr. Cummings' personal phone number on Facebook. Name another high-profile politician phone number that most people have. Tell me the last time Joseph Boycott just went to the market just to shake hands or visited those 17 districts after 2017 over and over again. People not taking that into consideration. He is approachable. And let me be honest with you. I have friends who are on the other side. When I say other side, I'm talking about Unity Party. They're on the completely other side. Hopefully we'll get to that conversation later. I have friends who are on the other side. And their biggest gripe with Mr. Cummings, and when they talk about why some of my friends didn't support him, he didn't give them money. Oh, you gotta give people money. You gotta get them something to drink, soft drink. You gotta get them something for cold water. You gotta pay. No, this is where that internal whatever you're hearing is coming from. It's not that he's focusing on other people. It's the fact that whenever certain people come around, they want a handout. That's a fact.
Yeah.
I was there. I went to the meetings with him. I went to the rallies. So it's not true that he's not approachable. He's more approachable than George Weah was when he was running. Tell me who regular citizen got George Weah's number?
I really want to speak on. Yeah.
Not only that, just look at his behavior. He's on Facebook saying, "Ask me questions." He will come to a show like this. He will go to
platforms.
Yeah, all these platforms.
Yeah.
Whether it's big or small, and he will open himself to Liberian people and say, "Ask me questions." What accessibility do you want more? You want to come and sleep on the mat in your house? What are we talking about here?
Let me add on because this is important, right? The reason why it's important, I tell people all the time, I have no problem with people being expressive in terms of their viewpoints. But for me, I understand the Liberian society and our people, right? We always play this victim. We always think that, we should be the only ones saying or expressing how we feel, and everybody else should listen, right? And if you don't agree with it, or you don't care, the people don't want to pay attention, they don't want to listen, and that's far from the truth. We need to stop it. Honestly speaking, as a young man growing up in Liberia, I know I was in CW, Cathedral. I know during those days, to get close to politicians was very hard. You could not even get near to these people. It was like only a certain people were around these guys. That's it. Everybody else doesn't matter. Mr. Cummings single-handedly changed that. You will see him in pictures with the regular person. You will see him around every other person. He may not be this person that's, out there like that. But when it comes to making his space available for everybody, I think he's the most accessible candidate. Let me share a quick personal story. And I think people need to hear this because it's important. People like us need to tell this story. Alexander Cummings don't need to listen to somebody like me. But I'll tell you, there was an issue wherein I felt that this whole fiasco was spawned, that he shouldn't appear on it. I have my own reasons why. And to this day, I think I've been proven right. He didn't have to call me to, listen to my opinions on it. Who am I? Alexander Cummings made 3 calls to me. Number 1, to understand my viewpoint. Number 2, to tell me that he has actually reached out to several people to listening to them. Number 3, actually 3 times, to have a group meeting with everybody to hear opposing views. And the 4th time, to call me to tell me why he's going to do certain things a certain way. I sat perhaps, and he had a lesson for me that he said, my young man, my son, let me tell you this. He said, whenever you feel a certain way about certain issues and stuff, don't come in with bargains. And take it in your personal career, in your life. Don't always make demands, because at the end of the day, you force people in the corner to make a decision, and they wouldn't do it because they feel like you're actually defined, or you have this kind of stuff you're making. And I sat there, I listened to him. But he said, here's what I'm going to do, and here's why I'm going to do it. As a teaching moment, yes, how you see, when I become president, I'm not going to be president for only one group of people. I'm going to be president for every Liberian. I have to make the best decision possible for all Liberians. And I respect it. Mr. Cummings saw me in Liberia. I didn't go to Mr. Cummings' office. I was there for work. And when he was having the address, Mr. Cummings came out. Duke, you came in this place, you don't want to see me? I said, Mr. Cummings, I came to work. I came to work. So you tell me, how approachable this man needs to be. Why do we have a certain expectation?
But Duke, you are not a good example from the diaspora or whether Mr. Cummings is approachable or not. I don't think that's what it means, because
can I ask a question?
The people who are making these insinuations are those who are in Liberia. You and me can get with Mr. Cummings.
Cyrus, but here's the thing, though. I have told you there's instances of Mr. Cummings and people, the ordinary people in that country. You can't discount that.
Yeah, let me ask a question.
You can't do that.
I'm not.
Please allow me to ask a question.
I'm putting you on the hot seat so you can explain that. Okay, go, Peter. Yeah, you go on.
It's going to take 2 seconds. Who do you want him to emulate after in Liberia right now? High profile politician, as far as accessibility.
Let Sigrid, just hold Peter question. Let me just come in with one point.
Okay.
Because I heard the same narrative about Cummings not being approachable. And you brought that up. 2 things come to my mind. Who are those individuals, or what are those institutions that have been trying to sort out his appearance, for which they have been catching hard time to reach him? And second, why is this narrative making headway in the news? That it should gain some prominence as to whether it should be like a fallback position for Cummings. No, Cummings is approachable. Any institution, any group of people, once you reach an organization, it's always open. So I don't know, Sigrid, maybe you got that information from somebody you can tell us. Those
okay. So let me answer Peter's question first. You say who should Cummings emulate?
Yeah.
In terms of accessibility.
Yeah. So where we are right now, the role that you have is to tell Cummings to Liberian people as the best candidate, and the role is not, the task is not too difficult, because the crust of the matter is already settled. They know that he's the most competent. He can change the country. He can change their lives. Yeah. And then I said the perception is that he's not resonating. You said no, he is resonating. So it's not to say that there's somebody else that is more approachable. I think they're setting a much more ideal standards for Mr. Cummings, because it seems that's the person they would prefer. That's why they are asking the hard questions. They are looking after the nuances, some which may not be justified. But what I want you to remember all the time is there are 2 things that we're dealing with here. There's governance. We have a good idea that Mr. Cummings is by far better than all the candidates that have come forward. Probably have been in that role before to govern for some of the reasons we talk about. But there's also the issue of winning an election. And in winning an election, the product that you have to buy is people's vote. Here, the exchange between Peter, for example, McCarthy left the impression that the people in Liberia are very intelligent relative to politics and they can make the value decision. I tell you what, I'm a very controversial person, so I'll be the first to tell you that I disagree with that, right? Because you're talking about numbers and science. If you look at how people are elected in Liberia, and the people who've been elected is not really based on
competence,
a validation of their ability to govern, as you and myself will note it. In fact, I share with you guys a graph of the election numbers last year. And something people don't look at much is the fact that in the first round of election, 24 or 25% of the people who registered to vote never cast a vote. In the second round, 50% never cast a vote. Almost 1 million people out of 2.1 million.
Yeah.
There is a reason why.
Cyrus, you know what happened in the second round, right? That's when they came with all the little trickery in it and it pushed it right around, the day after Christmas.
Yeah, but Duke, if you really are concerned about governance and the leadership, whether Christmas or not, you will vote. And the reason why because I was strongly election central that we're on now was we're airing ERBC at then. The reason why that was pushed to Christmas was not because of trickery. It was because Councillor Bronsky has contested the election results after the first round. And it went to the grievance committee in the NEC. While he was there, Bronsky sought an injunction from the Supreme Court that all election process be halted until his case was heard. And the Supreme Court granted that. What screwed up that election was that the Unity Party decided to go and join Bromsky in the court to argue for the nullification of the election. When they have won the election already, they were supposed to be preparing for a runoff. So this thing dragged through the system and it goes to the Supreme Court. In early December, the Supreme Court decides and set the election date for December 26th. If you look at the numbers that came out after the election, normally runoffs take less numbers. But if you look at the numbers that Ambassador Barker numbers never changed at all. And I think the reason was simply because the message that went out to his people was that he did not have interest in the election. He would rather that elections be nullified. But howbeit, 50% of the people did not vote. In the first round, 25% of the people did not vote. If you look at how many votes those who became consequential won, that 25% and the 50% matter. In the first round, if you look at the registered voters, I'm not talking about the votes cast. If you look at the registered voters, George Weah won just about 25% of the registered voters. Bwaka won about 20%. 24% never voted. Can you imagine what would have happened if they had voted?
Yeah, probably the same thing that happened because that's how when people do statistics and you do polling, that number. This is why when you're looking at election, after 20% of the election results come in, they call the election because the trend doesn't change. I think part of the reason why Buckeye's numbers didn't change from first round to second round is because he's got nothing to offer. And the people who were voting for him, the same people on Facebook, the same people who are really, really active, these proactive activists are the ones who are voting for him. The rest of the Liberian people are not hearing anything new. So they say, I'd rather stay home and find something to eat than go and worry about voting for this guy. This guy's offering us nothing. And we all know that. That's why his numbers didn't change. That dedicated 25% that he got is that's his number. That's not going to change.
Right.
However, think about it. Half of the people who registered to vote, brother, half of the people, they didn't even bother to vote when those two were the options.
And Cyrus, Pete, let me just add one there. You see the way, that's why I said our country is not politically mature. Because the way we play politics in Liberia, especially as regards electioneering, the electors get frustrated over all these kind of bottlenecks. These are some of the things that are driving the kind of data that we're looking at today. What you say, that's a
which bottlenecks?
Like the data you just gave us. I'm trying to find out why those individuals did not cast their vote, especially after the registration. 25% who went to the runoff, 50%. The way we play politics and the things that we do around politicking frustrates the electorate. Today, look at the the registration process. Look where it is. Now, Elections Commission is not considering, say, oh no, we're not going to hold this kind of biometric stuff now. What we're going to do is the old way we did it when G. Henry and we were there after the news, after the war. That's what we're going back to. And that's a rigorous process, Cyrus.
What I don't understand. Before I even ask that question, let me add something else. Now, in that first round of the elections, 88,000 people also voted, but their ballots were disqualified, were cast out. Even though there was an argument to make sure that the ballots that show intent should be maintained. So that means they may have qualified some, because everybody around the table, all the stakeholders say, well, even though there's in low right, but I think this is what that person was trying to do.
But after
88,000 persons didn't meet that minimum standard, but they went to the polls to vote. I'm trying to make a point to Peter and also to Duke about the perception that you are dealing with a normal, intelligent electorate, that the message about what's good for Liberia and the quality of the candidate and his integrity will resonate. I don't believe it is that simple.
No, it's not.
I don't believe it is that simple.
Yeah, I don't think that's
it's not, Cyrus.
Like,
for example, the 8,000 ballots cancel.
Yeah, it is not impossible either to be able to find a solution for these issues.
No, it's not. It's messaging, but for you to find a solution, you yourself have to understand what some of the issues are.
Yeah, but you know,
have you heard they said before, especially from inside Liberia, amongst people when they refer to the diasporans who support Cummings, which they consider to be a strong advocacy, that the people who support Cummings from the diaspora are condescending about other Liberians when it comes to.
I say
a question. Have you heard that? Have you heard that before?
I've even heard them say the same thing about other people, right? I've heard them say that about the Joseph Boyka camp. I've heard that. I think, yes, the problem here. What the problem is, when people can find something to take you on in terms of the issue, they find the low-hanging fruit to reach out to. And I don't think we should run an entire process based upon that perception. And it's, let me tell you to this. If it was not because of diaspora support or the people in the diaspora who, believe in Cummings' vision, would there be, would the ANC be as effective as it is today? Right? Let's say that. So let's say, okay, the people in the diaspora are condescending. We say, okay, we'll pack our stuff. Let's turn the thing over to them. Let them go ahead. The same people will come with another thing to look for again.
But I don't think.
Wait 1 second though. Before I was part of the ANC, I supported the Unity Party in 2017. I wasn't condescending. You understand me? When you switch your support to the ANC and you support Mr. Cummings, when they don't have anything to say, then they find something else to talk about. I think that's just our people. That's why I don't waste my time. What I do is I have a personal conversation. Know me as a person. Know the people in the diaspora. And you know what? When we come to the election process, do you know that the diaspora people who've left from here to go on ground, they have been some of the most effective. They have been the most engaging. They have actually built relationships with the ordinary people in that country. So I wouldn't feed on that kind of stuff or even define my campaign or my processes based upon that perception. I think just as we all look, here's the thing. I think all of us have our own angles when it comes to talking, discussing our politics. Some people may not like it. Other people may not like it. Look, I know the history of Liberia and how certain people see certain group of people. We're not going to go ahead and be something else that we're not because we think you're peaceful people. What we will do though is to have a heart-to-heart talk. Know me as a person, know us, right? As Liberians, and let's move forward. But I wouldn't buy into that because I think it's just a narrative being put out there by certain individuals who have nothing.
Good point. Gabriel, you share that view?
Yeah, and I think I would look at it from a different landscape, right? And this is who we are as a people, right? Well, I keep saying this thing, and this is something you guys should really. We're a passive group of people. What do I mean by passive? Like when something bothering, instead of us speaking out, we won't do it. Perfect example. You see how Dude spoke right now? He's bold. Like he didn't mince his word, right? The same thing Peter does. James does it too. But in Liberia in general, we're passive, right? So this idea, I think this is where this narrative came from. This idea of comparing, initially it started with comparing Mr. Cummings with Ambassador Borkai. Now, if you put those two side by side, like they're literally like night and day in terms of the experience, the accomplishment, right? And people within the ANC were very vocal about pointing that out, that these two people, you can't even put them in the same light. You can't even put them on the same sheet of paper and say you're comparing them, right? And people don't like that because in Africa in general, right, we're supposed to venerate our older people. Oh, we're supposed to respect them, right? So if you start calling out, say, hey, this old man, he was, head of a $440 million investment in Liberia when he was overseeing the LPMC, and investigation came in by the U.S. Senator, and he got investigated. That's why he left. They don't want you calling that out. He oversaw concessions. That 66 of them were bogus. You don't want, like, they want you to show respect to other people, right? Yes, I can respect you, but I can still tell you when you're wrong boldly without missing my words. So when you do that, that's when that label come out. Oh, this person, they're condescending. No, I'm not condescending. I will probably, maybe you guys are maybe a year or two older than me. But when you're wrong, I will not miss my word with you.
So, Gabriel, have you been a teacher before?
I've never been a teacher, but when you're wrong,
so you explain the same thing completely differently from Duke and Peter.
No, I haven't explained this.
I'm not.
You saw fit. It's not about explaining it differently.
I'm not. It's just the way. It's just the way. So you're maybe a year or two older than me, right? But when you're wrong, Cyrus, I would still tell you. Without missing my word.
I would expect you to do that.
Exactly. If, let's say, perfect example, if you're putting on weight, I'll say, Sarah, I won't tell you, say, Sarah, hey, Loda, I'll say, my man, Loda, you putting on too much weight. You need to start running, right? In our African community, especially in Liberia, we're kind of passive in terms of telling old people when they're wrong. And that came to be when we started comparing Mr. Cummings to JNB, and we started being vocal about that you can't put them on the same sheet of paper and compare them. And we started calling them.
Bottom line is, Cyrus,
let's agree on one. So let's agree.
Where are we with all of the accusations? Where are we now as a country?
Let's agree on one. Let's agree on one thing.
No.
Right? Is there a likelihood that the way you candidly approach this issue may dissuade somebody from supporting your candidate?
Can I say that?
Is that likely?
Let me say this quickly, and this guy can come in. And this is my view personally, right? As the same example that I was using. If you are not doing things to your full potential, and I come to you and lie to you all by sugarcoating it, I won't be fair to you. I'll be depriving you of reaching where you're supposed to be, right? Now, from most people's perspective, they will say, "Oh, why are you telling me that I'm fat? Or why are you telling me that I'm this? Or why are you talking
you don't like me, you don't respect me." Yeah,
exactly. They will say you don't respect me. The first thing say you're insulting my intelligence. But that is the truth. You may do what you want to do with it. Like I will say this quickly, and I will end. When I used to be a kid, when I do something, my mom would yell at me. But in the morning, she will come early in the morning, like around 4 or 5 o'clock, and come to me and tell me exactly why she did what she did. Why she talked to me the way she did. Right? It wasn't sugarcoating anything. You sugarcoat people things, about themselves.
I was a good mother, man. My mother would flog me for free.
You get flogged, but she will tell you after the day and tell you why she flogged you, right? She will tell you why she flogged you. You don't sugarcoat things about people. So this narrative came about when we started comparing Mr. Cummings and Mr. The ambassador, and we started being vocal, very vocal, that you cannot even put these two people in the same room. Like they're night and day, light years. Mr. Cummings' experience is light years ahead of Mr. Boycott. And when you're being vocal about that, they don't respect that. This is when all these labels come out that, oh, you're being too arrogant, you're being too aggressive. We need to be aggressive of Liberia. We've been passive enough, and that passiveness never got us anywhere.
Okay, good point. Peter, you wanted to say something?
And there's a reason I'm pressing so hard to say what I want to say, because I think there's a pattern here. Veneration does play a role, as Gabriel just said, in calling out this elder for not achieving, stating the bare facts. And I'm going to say something I'm going to come back to, stating the bare facts. And I'm going to use Cindy as an example of a post that she did when Boycott talked about, I didn't have any surgery, I only had a pacemaker. I don't know how that's possible. That's like saying, I brushed my teeth, but I didn't open my mouth. I don't know how you got that accomplished. I would tell my son, go back to the bathroom and go brush your teeth. You didn't brush your teeth. Okay. Projectionism. I need to talk about that. And this is the point I was trying to press. There is a narrative, and this seems like off the cuffs, but so give me a little bit of latitude. There was a narrative, even in 2017, this homosexual narrative, right? That was projected onto Mr. Cummings. We need to deal with the elephant in the room. There was a projection on Mr. Cummings, right? And it kind of stuck, even though it was so ridiculous that it got dismissed by a lot of us. Like, that's so stupid. No, it wasn't. There's a reason for that. That behavior, that sleeping with young boys in Liberia, was happening by government officials from 05 to whenever.
It was happening. Somebody else. Yeah.
Yes, it was happening. We all know it was happening, right? People were soliciting homosexual sex from our young men, and they would come out and tell that story. Okay, who was in charge of the country then? UP. But we had to be polite because we were in a marriage with them. When these people start to project this onto Mr. Cummings, our people already know this was true. All they had to do was say he was part of it, and now it's stuck. Right? It's not that the behavior was something brand new. It was happening, but he didn't do it. What happened was the UP people took that, whatever gross feeling that Liberians had about that behavior that they were perpetuating, and they projected it onto Mr. Cummings. I'm going to give you another example. When you talk to my family, full disclosure, my entire family back home, Seditians. My father died around the election time. He dies a Seditian. I was a Seditian until I started to investigate, because I believe in the ideology of lifting the common man up and breaking up the boys' club. Okay. These Seditians were talked down to. I'm saying this while my family was voting. They saw these people in nice cars. They went to the private schools. They took the kids abroad. That's a real feeling. They felt like UP was arrogant. They set up checkpoints. They held them accountable because they could. They talked down to them. UP. It was not no ANC. It was not CPP. What's happening now? Now, all of a sudden, these Liberian people have that bad memory of being treated, be condescended to, right? And now they say, oh, ANC people are the one doing it. ANC is the one doing it. So UP has this thing of projecting their flaws onto other people.
Yep.
So buying into it and saying, well, there's this perception that these people know they're trying to change their jersey and give it to someone else to blame them for what they have been doing.
Yeah.
Because what I would ask anyone who said these people are arrogant and they're condescending, give me examples. that brings me to Gabriel's point. Not because I'm pointing out Joseph Boycott is not competent for the job means I'm being condescending. But that bad feeling that was already created before, see, that's the example of it. That's why I always ask these people, show me how these people are being condescending. Show me how Mr. Cummings is being unapproachable. They can't. And those of us who are doing this stuff on have these platforms, we have a responsibility to ask questions for verification.
Yeah.
You can't just sell a narrative. That was UP's behavior. UP were the ones sleeping with young boys. They were. They're the ones who were corrupt. They were. They're the ones who were condescending. They were. Don't put that onto anyone. Don't project that onto other people, and that's okay. You're not going to insult me and try to emasculate me and dehumanize me and think, oh, I'm going to sit there and be quiet. I always say this, like, oh, Peter, you insult. Yeah. You can never be one person who did not insult me by insulting first.
Right.
You're not going to dehumanize me. Last thing, because I was a man before I cared about politics. And you're going to treat me like I treat you. That's all it is. But don't project this negative feeling that people have about UP onto other people.
And that's the
Duke, you want to add to that?
Quickly speaking, because I know we're running out of time. But what I'm saying is, sorry. In my own personal life, I tell people, treat people like the way in which you want them to be. In the case of Liberia, so Liberia is not just a political play for me. It's an opportunity to be able to go in the hearts and minds of our people and to see those things that are wrong. The truth here is that this culture where people continue to play victim, even though they're the oppressors, they're the ones that are victimizing others, right? But they want you to look at yourself and say, I am wrong, you're right. When you've actually been the one that's actually, offended me, right? And then those of us who should be the ones educating this person, that's not the way to do it. We encourage those behaviors. We say, you know what? The people here, we just need to find a way to engage them. My thing here is, though, if you, what has worked in Liberia in terms of that matter? What has empathy done for us? Okay? What has this culture of you, the victim, right? Looking at somebody else who's victimized you and having empathy for them, how has it worked? Look at the case of Prince Johnson. This man murdered people in that country today. People think that he's the victim. Even the victim thinks that he's the victim. This is the case of our body of politics. We sit here. I cannot talk a certain way, and I'm called a Congo man. I cannot project certain things and talk certain about politics without you disrespecting me. When I stand up for myself, then I become arrogant. Well, when we go back to the conversation to see that you're the disrespect, but I should allow it to happen because I want your vote. Isn't that the same bad presidents were setting? We're not just engaging our people because we want them to vote for the candidate we're marketing. We're trying to teach our people to think better, because if we don't do that, we're destroying them further. We're even the same thing with the issue of rice. We are portraying the same. So look, I think what we need is more healthy conversation about these things to understand. Lastly, I will say this to you. In 2017, there was a man on there, he supposed Joseph Boycott now, who taught everything else about me. After I said that, he supported CDC, and we had some heated exchange. Call me arrogant, call me this, that, the rest of it. This young man happened to come to the States and end up in North Carolina. Somebody told him the first you're here to contact dude. Oh, that man this. I said, no, you don't know him. Contact him. And I think he said he wrote this on his post, last year on his Facebook page. And when he called me, I went and drove almost about an hour away from where I stayed. Met him there. And that time we changed. And there's some things that I did I wouldn't say on here for 1 year straight. 1 year he joked, he said, man, even my girlfriend was saying, now what kind of man here? Something, all of this. You see, all of us have this thing in our hearts, outside of politics, that we generally care about people. But instead of accusing people of arrogance, as in the case of the ANC, get to know people. Some people don't want to know people. Because if you get to know people, you understand that all of us are fighting for the same thing in a different way. Just as you want me to communicate a message in a certain way, you've got to be able to listen in another way. The growth is on both sides and not just only one person. That's where maturity kicks in. But those of us who have the opportunity, the power through the media, the power through the relationships and the conversation, we should be the one, instead of encouraging that particular behavior of empathy, and let them know, no, why do you say this about this person? Why do you say that people this, that, the rest of it? What did you do? What was that exchange like? I think that's what we're moving to. You know, this case, I'm on the closing argument now. A lot of people will follow that show on radio. You'll be amazed, not even my ANC people, but people from other parties, and even the ones that criticize. I will give flaws of message. Duke, listening, you're speaking good about Mr. Cummings. You're doing this. I respect what you're doing and stuff down there. You know, I have a different perception about you. Even people who thought a certain way. So we shouldn't allow that. Let's all of us see where we're wrong. However, we shouldn't encourage a culture of empathy wherein we think that those who are abusing us, right, are the victims when we are the victim, not the Prince Johnson theory. That was just my point.
Okay, so well, let me. You guys going to get time to wrap up. So let me bring the next set of concern, and I'm saying this within the framework because this second half we're talking about electability. So I see all the passion coming out about how perception and facts and how people should communicate and all that. I get that. The question I want to ask now is, knowing all we know right now, you guys who are panelists today, can you tell me that Mr. Cummings can win this election, and if he can win it, how?
Let me come in small.
Yeah.
I want to speak.
Oh yeah. James go. James, yeah.
Yeah, I want to speak from two perspectives. I want to speak as a voter who doesn't know Cummings at all, just heard the name first. Then I also want to speak as a person who knows him very well. And then I'll add a B to that. The person who doesn't know him but has a desire and drawn towards him and try to do some research. Okay, let's put it from that perspective. So I keep complaining about electorates. The kind of message that they want from us, the politicians, and anyone who's trying to market his candidate, what kind of message that would drive our candidate towards them? That's one. That is the individual who does not know Cummings at all. Are we portraying that kind of message? We have been doing it. On this panel, almost everybody here very abreast with Cummings. You've been on the grounds, you've done some research, then comes in, are we able to market him? So having said this, if we can do a research as an electorate, or the politician, the ANC and Friends of Cummings and Team Cummings can market our candidate to the best of our ability, I can guarantee you, Cyrus, yes, indeed, he will win the election.
Okay, right. When you say research, what do you mean? Considering that
for example,
more than 75% of our people are illiterate.
More than
80% of them have not used a faucet with shower before.
Okay.
Almost 90% of them have not used flush toilet.
Okay, then it's left with us for those who are engaging one-on-one to market the candidate. That's why I brought in the marketing mechanism. We have to tell them one-on-one, like Dude's been doing on the ground, that Pete been doing from school to school, village to village. I have a friend of mine who was here in Detroit. And this guy and I, let me just put that story in. This guy and I, we communicated and we decided on how to market Dillon. Dillon campaign was good, the slogan that he brought on the scene. So what we did, you live in Singapore before, yeah. You think you got 3 persons you can send out and they showed you. I'm just saying something. So we engage, even though we're in the diaspora, we engage the people on the grounds. We have cells set up in various communities within Montreal County and told them, say, hey, this is my candidate. Now, for those of my ANC people and Team Cummings and Friends of Cummings, that's what this guy is doing now in Liberia. He's in River Cess. He does not come to Monrovia that often. He stays there from town to town, village to village. He speaks his vernacular. He's communicating the information that this man would do this for us. That's the kind of engagement I'm talking about. So we are doing the research for those people who never had a shower on their head or who can do the research. And that's the kind of marketing mechanism that I want the ANC people, Team Cummings, and Friends of Cummings to engage our electorates.
Okay, so who's next?
So yeah, let me jump in. Again, just being a witness on the ground, they are working. They are doing the door to door, and James talked about vernacular. It's more important to be authentic and to be honest. Our people respect that. I've been to that Thai spot on Kerry Street a couple of times, and I talk the way I talk because I've been out the country. If I was living Freetown, I'd be talking like Freetown Baba right now, for as long as I have. Just like we all, the way we talk has changed. Our people see that. I think a lot of times people put way too much emphasis on oh, you got to know Cummings is being Cummings, and our people see through that. I think is really unfortunate that a lot of people think that you need to trick Liberian people. You need when you go on the ground, you realize what I'm saying. When you talk your regular way and just they know you're Liberian, but you've been out and you don't try to change things, they respect that. Our people do want help. Our people do want the best candidate. I think that, like, I'll give you another example. James just talked about we need to set up cells, and this is what Cummings has been doing since 2017. This is why I want to answer your question and say 100% I believe we're going to win. To a point where I start placing bets so I can go home and for the inauguration throw a big party with taking people money from UP. I want to place bets. I think he's going to win, and here's why I believe he's going to win. He set up cells in these various counties since 2017. This is what George Weah was trying to copy when he was doing the county tour, but the people saw it was fake. Cummings has been going back. He's checked with those elders and said, "That's need." I know I was late, which brings me to he was late. Yes, the people said he was late before. That's why he never stopped going back. A lot of people are not taking that into consideration because they haven't talked to the real people. Since 2017, Cummings has been going to these various counties, these chiefs, and they're not going to come out and say we vote in. They're just not going to do it. That's not what they do. But trust and believe the relationship he's formed since 2017 is what's going to propel him to the presidency. One last thing before I go, I brought up. Yes.
No, you will come back. You will come back. You will have your parting comments. Everybody.
Yeah, no, it's not. All right. Okay. Go ahead.
Good. So let's go to Gabriel. Do you think that Mr. Cummings is going to win the election? How is that going to happen?
Well, thank you. That is a great question. For me, I think it falls on one thing, and I've said this over and over, right? It's whoever is the hardest working person in our country. Show me one candidate right now who is suing the counties, engaging the people, putting engaging more grassroots than Mr. Cummings. Yes, we keep hearing this argument, oh, he's new or he's late, but the work that he has covered, the level of energy, nobody else is doing that right now. Mm-hmm. And for me, I think if you are able to roll up your sleeve and engage and make your case to the Liberian people as to why they should vote for you, not one time you go into a county and stop going, but repeatedly, it would transform into changing minds. And at the end of this campaign, this is what this is all about. Changing people's minds that are on the fence, or like the narratives that are out there. Going, engaging people, approaching them, right? In various counties. He is the hardest working person among all of the other candidates right now.
Indeed.
By far. And for me, I believe in hard work. Yes, you might be smart. You might have a different strategy. They might like you. But guess what I would do? I will outwork you, and I will show you that repeatedly over and over until you start recognizing me that this is a formidable force that you're dealing with. And that's exactly what he's doing. And for me, I believe consistently doing that, in addition to people that are on the ground like Duke, and everybody else, this is why I believe he's going to win. It is hard work. You cannot just win Liberia presidency by just folding your hands and say, oh, because the people like me, they're going to vote for me. Or because I've been in this country for so long, they're going to choose me over you. The hard work is going to change. The hard work is going to make you outwork anybody. And I believe that's what he's been doing consistently. And I believe that's the winning formula to the presidency.
Okay, so we all have taken a shot at that question, right? So let's we about exhausted our time.
No, I didn't though, did I?
Oh, you didn't know? Come on, then you go ahead.
I'll be tweaking that stuff, and we'll move in the closing. Oh, let me say this to you, Cyrus. The people who come on social media to talk, and there are people who do the work. I've been doing the work since 2017. My body's taking a toll, beating, because of the ANC working with young people, organizing events. Go on social media. Gabriel's been there as a supporting cast to me, Pete, all of these people. We've done a remarkable job with young people building cells across that country. There's some things I wouldn't say in the public eye. You know, what you see from the outside and people talk all of this sometimes live. I was in charge of the ANC mobilization process. I know what we did. I know what it costs to print the events that you see these children going on, Mr. Cummings' picture on the messaging in the district, waking up in the morning, making sure the teams are actually 10% from here, 21% in the district, recording names, entering database, and all of the stuff. We're prepared. You know, on Friday, the chairman of the CPP, Suitability, guaranteed that the ANC, the CPP, will be in the second round. And he also made an announcement that after we announced Fixer 2, all those machines, yellow machines, are going to Grand Bassa County and starting to do work for the people. Look, the aggressive grassroots work, in addition to what we've done across the country, is going to give us an added advantage. I'm not worried about it. I left from Liberia. Yeah, Gaia just said that global youth. Yes, yeah. That's an effective grassroots that we're able to set up and lay across the country with young people, pushing them to register to vote, making sure we're building cells across that country. I'm not going to say much, but I will tell you this. I left with Liberia having no doubt that Mr. Cummings is going to pull this off. I have a video in Liberia, in one of these communities in the Brevard area, where when I look at it, you know what, Mr. Cummings is going to pull this thing off. He's going to win the election. And some of us may come and speak because we have tribal affiliations, because of our names, to the vice president who would even be campaigning around here. But I can assure you that the work that we've put in, the resources that we put in the movements that you will see after the 27th, trust me, there's a tsunami coming. And I have no doubt that when it's all said and done, Mr. Cummings is going to be at the forefront of the opposition, and he's going to be the one in the second round making the case and earning the votes for the Liberian people.
Great. So in a minute, I will give you guys a few minutes to give us your parting comments. But first, I think this has been a rich exchange, fiery exchange, and I want to thank you guys for showing up, coming up, and thank all those who been watching.
Do you mind me? You just put up a comment and you triggered me. Can I respond in 10 seconds? We
got another show to be on.
Which comment? Which comment?
Another show to be on. That's from the Kissy guy.
It's going to take me 5 seconds.
Was that a bet? So do this for me, Peter. You're going to have a few minutes to close up. You can address it. I can put it back up when you're ready. So you guys, well, thanks again. Thanks for coming. I think this was great. I think this was informative and reaching to the audience. So you take a few minutes to give us your parting comments. As you do that, one of the things I thought we should have talked on, we didn't do. If you like to take a bite on what is the value of the tribal element in the Liberian elections, tribalism. You don't have a constituency and all that. So take a bite on that and then give us your parting comment. Yeah, and when you come to Peter, I will leave that post for you. Go ahead. Who want to start?
Let me open it up. So I want to thank you guys, all the panelists, professional individual, very diverse, very articulate, very analytical. I enjoyed the panel tonight. Thank you, Cyrus, too, also for giving us this platform to be able to express some of these things. So yeah, there are so many issues addressed here today. Like, for example, the electability of Cummings. We stated that and we said that he is indeed electable. All right. And I kept stressing the fact that there's no doubt, like one of the audience commented here. He said, guys, all the ideas you have are all great for that, but this man, he's great. But then he blamed him, he blaming him for the breakup of CPP. Now, this is disinformation. I keep saying to my ANC people, I keep saying to Team Cummings and Friends of Cummings, we need to market our candidate. Thanks to Duke, who's on the ground. Thanks to Pete. Thanks to the general just on the ground a few days. We need a marketing mechanism to market this candidate. All these good things, all the videos that I can follow that Cummings explaining his platform, those videos are good. All the allegations that what Cyrus mentioned, allegations they have against Cummings, why is he making headways within the media? Because there's no one to counteract these things and dispel all these rumors, all these propagandas, false narrative, disinformation about this candidate. That is why it's filtering. So I'm calling on that also. And just to take a bite secret at the tribal element, yes, it is very, very much visible. It's been there for a very long time. The Congo and country divide. I just listened to what's the guy named Ability saying today, he was trying to dispel the fact that the Liberty Party is a bastard party. Bronsky didn't say that. Bronsky was building the Liberty Party for Liberians. So you see, new breed of politicians were coming in, bringing in this idea about putting the tribal element away. But it's hard to go. But we have to do that if we must succeed as a nation. We have to do that. So it is very visible, Cyrus. The tribal element is visible. It's a key player into this election and any other subsequent elections and political engagements. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? You want to go up, Peter? That way we can deal with that stuff.
I can go
Before you forget.
Yeah, I'm quick to forget too. So a couple of things.
Is that it?
The first thing, yeah.
That's
no. It was another thing that Gissy Man said. It was something else. But
and then I'll find it.
The first thing with CPP, we like making jokes. All right. Anyway, the first thing I want to address that comment. He said he had a bridge to sell. I think he should sell that bridge and take the money and donate it to Boycott because he needs it. UP needs all the money they can get. So sell the bridge and donate the money so you guys can pay some dues like rent for UP, back dues for CPP, all that. Okay. Here's what I want to talk about. First thing, tribalism. I don't know when I became Kunga. And saying Kunga and Native, and I'm a Crown man. I'm a raw Crown man. And whenever I engage
Peter, you don't sound like Crown man, my man. Don't keep up there.
Come on, Cyrus.
We know how Crown people sound.
Okay. Whenever, you gotta filter my blood. Whenever I hear people say, "Oh, you're a Kunga man," right? I think about how disrespectful that is to my clan, the village in Boston that we come from. Here's why: we got hunted, we got killed, we got slaughtered. My uncles, my aunts, my grandfather in that war. My family was actual victim, not some theory. We just happened to escape before they got to us. My father, all the people in my family looked up to their children being educated. So you're saying after their children got the information that they wish they worked so hard for, my mom in the market worked so hard for, after they get the information, now their tribe changes?
That's the real definition of Congo people in Liberia. When you get some education, you get some social class, then you are distinguished from the ordinary poor indigenous people, even if you have an indigenous background.
I don't have an indigenous background. I have indigenous blood. But anyway, I just think it's so disrespectful to my father, my mom, the sacrifices all our market women are making right now for their children. Oh, you achieved what we set out. We made so much sacrifice for. Now you're not part of this family. I think that's part of the social, the classism, right? And here's the thing about it: Liberia is not unique to tribalism or ethnic cleansing. We're not unique to this. Indonesia, okay, the Philippines, Singapore. All these countries have ethnic issues. It's not unique to our country, right? But when we keep using it to hold and divide people, this is where the problem comes in. I want to talk about something I started to go into and now forgot. Yasendi made a post about Joseph Boycott lying and catch himself in his own lie and still lying. He said, I have a pacemaker, but I didn't have surgery. It's not possible. So all she did was post it and said, it's not possible to have a pacemaker. They said this woman was being disrespectful for stating the facts. Is she supposed to apologize for that? She took his own words on a video in an interview and posted it up and said, this is not possible. Where was the disrespect? This is what I'm talking about when I say projectionist. They take whatever they have created and try to put it on the laps of other people. This is not how things are supposed to be. So when you ask if we believe Mr. Cummings is going to win the election, I want to think back on what Gibber said. Not only do we believe he's going to win because of the work he's put in, but because of of how flawed the people he's competing against. He's running circles around them. The people who are talking, like the Gisi man who put stuff up, right? I bet you he doesn't even have a voting card. Ask him when's the last time you're in Liberia. Like me and Duke are giving you anecdotal stories because we were just there. And I've gone there last 3 times. I was just home. So tell me, show me your voting card. Who did you talk to? Where's this authentic? Where's the evidence? You just assert, oh, you're not resonating with people. Why? Because George Noble told you that? That's not how life works. You need facts. You need evidence. He's going to win the election because he's the hardest working person. Not only is he the most qualified, but he's what Liberia needs. I ask everyone in closing to please join in this fight. This is not any one person's responsibility. Not any one person's responsibility. In your own way, you have to take on this mantle and fight. The thing about competition, there is no comfort in competition. Get out your comfort zone because you don't know how far your competitor is willing to go. Get out your comfort zone, go to Liberia, make phone calls, send money, do whatever you got to do because this is a great opportunity to turn our countries around. And it's not reliant on just one person. It's reliant on all of us that know better, especially if you're in a first world country. You know this how structured their country is. If you have an opportunity to do that to our country, just like every other nation that was created after World War II, who are now way more economically successful than we are. We could do so much better with our resources. We have a person to do that now. Put the structure in place, put the accountability in place. If Mr. Cummings was not to win this election, is because you didn't do enough. Because I feel like he's doing way more than he should. So thanks for allowing me on this platform. Thanks for letting us have this conversation.
Wow, that's a great closing by Pete. And
thank you, Peter.
If I can just close out because I have to, and then I'm gonna give her. You know, when people bring tribalism into a conversation that needs to be based on ideas, it speaks of how far we've regressed as a country. And I saw my PC brother there, Sasa. He said, you know, somebody like me who's supposed coming, I'm considered to be a Congoman because I talk a different way. That's how far we've come. You know, 13 Liberians were executed in Liberia because people thought that they were corrupt. Joseph Boyka, who's running to be president, was part of that PRC government that supported the execution of 13 Liberians. The tribalism stuff have destroyed us as a country enough. When do we stop it? When do we reach the point and say, you know what, we've actually suffered a lot. Our people have died. 250,000 Liberians died in that country because people thought they were either Mana, Gio, Kran, or Madinko because of this tribal divide. And here we are in the 21st century, the age of globalization, when a lot of our conversation should be about how can we compete to better Liberia. It is about something that's even unimportant. But I believe, Cyrus, that on the ballot, the issue of education is going to be there. Healthcare is going to be there. Employment is going to be there. The question here is, who's better suited to provide our people all of those things? Who's better suited to create jobs in the private sector? Who comes with the skill set that can move the needle in terms of making sure that our people can experience the kind of leadership The only person in that race is Alexander Cummings because he is the one with the proven record. The former vice president cannot fight corruption because he's indicted in a United States government report for embezzling. Go ahead and read the Ted Kennedy report. The vice president was in charge of the Liberian Produce Marketing Corporation at that particular time. What is the vice president going to do about healthcare?
That's true.
What is the vice president going to do about agriculture when you have yellow machines are still on Wasonga highways? A wasted government effort that was placed in the hands of the vice president, gone to waste. We cannot replace ineptitude with ineptitude and lack of leadership in Joseph Boycott. We have to replace ineptitude with leadership that works, leadership that's been proven on the global stage, leadership that was shown during the CPP when Mr. Cummings made sure he stood the test of time and provided guidance for our people to experience a political shift in terms of the wins that we had in that country. We must change Liberia based upon ideologies and not tribalism, because tribalism destroys. Tribalism does not serve our people well. What serves our people is how we can create jobs for the unemployed college students in that country and young people who deserve to be part of our national discussion. Cyrus, I want to say thank you, man, for this opportunity. Hopefully we'll continue to do this, but I am excited about the way forward. And I know that after the 27th, you will see the much needed momentum and our people will understand that this is about ideas versus tribalism and sectionalism, and that if we focus on idea, we can draft the narrative and move Liberia forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Duke. And Gabriel, I always give you the trouble. Before you come here, I wanted to add another a layer to your cake based on the previous statements by Duke and Peter.
Yeah.
Do you guys consider Ambassador Joseph Boakai as your premier competition?
I will vehemently say that I don't think he's even a competition. He's not even a competition. Our competition, or the ANC competition, is, getting.
I mean, I asked because I saw the passion with which both Duke and Peter approached the issue of Ambassador Boakai. I never heard them say anything about Joshua.
The reason why they spoke to that is because we have this narrative that Mr. Boakai is this old man who has supposedly hasn't done any wrong, right? And I think what they kept speaking to is those investigations that are out there that I don't think most of his supporters are aware of, like Dukes and P said.
Could you guys share the link to those investigations so that
I will share after this thing. I will share that document with you that Duke and P reference. It is out there for, I think it was 440 million, right? Where the U.S. created an account. Liberian government supposed to put their own portion in, and the U.S. government supposed to put their own portion in. That money kept disappearing until the senator from Massachusetts here, where I live, altered that investigation. He said we got to investigate them.
And in the report, our former vice president was indicted.
He was the head of the LPMC at the time, and
okay.
there was
I'd
money.
like to see that report.
There was money towards the military, another one towards agriculture. All of that money disappeared, gone. 440 million. Today's money's worth in today's dollar, that was equivalent to almost $1 billion at the time. That's why they kept mentioning, and we don't talk about the concession deals, right? So that's why Duke and P were passionate about that, and I think it needs to be heard.
Well, I'm hoping to have the UP team here next week. So if that information is available, we'll give them an opportunity to speak to it.
I will share that with you so you can question them on it and they can, answer that. But, to make my closing argument, I think Duke have said everything that we needed to talk about here. Liberia, if you look at our history as a country, we're free as a nation, but we've never been economically and politically liberated. From a freedom standpoint, we're free, but from a liberation standpoint, economically, anyone who grew up in our country to self-actualize and become what they fully were meant to be, we're not at that level. And it's because of these past failures upon failures that has gotten us here. The rest of the other countries, our neighbors, Ivory Coast, Ghana, the worst of the world, they're in the fifth industrial revolution, right? They're in the fifth industrial revolution, which is the Web 3.0. We have not even graduated from the first industrial revolution, which is to have factories producing things in Liberia and having people creating jobs. We're not even at that level. Not a single being. We graduate thousands upon thousands upon thousands of students every year, only for them to end up in the street to go peddle wherever they can go peddle in. No companies in our country to hire them. Not a single one. And I will say this lastly: show me a president who has who attempted to transform Liberia from this dependent country that we've been to a market economy where companies are thriving and jobs are abundant, where people can thrive. Not a single one. And we have that opportunity in Mr. Cummings to do that, to take us from this, a dependent cycle that we've been in, to bring us into a market economy where jobs are created. Where there's thousands of kids that will graduate out of high school and colleges every year, they should be able to come out and go into a company and work. We don't have that. So this is what that conversation is about. This is about the soul and the future of Liberia. So when you hear people talk about, or his electability, like, you cannot compare him with any candidate in the race right now. They're like light years. He's light years ahead of them. So that's the conversation. That's what the conversation should be about. And it was a pleasure being here, and I look forward to continuing the discussion with the rest of the guys on here. So thank you for having us.
Thank you, Gabriel. Ajumu, you want to close up? You are mute. We can't hear you. You're acting like Omer Bwaka now.
I know, right? So yeah, my colleagues have said it all, But I keep stressing a few points here. I got no doubt about the electability of my candidate Cummings. I got no doubt. All right. The driving mechanism behind Cummings' ascendancy to the presidency, I like it. The ANC, Team Cummings, and Friends of Cummings, all in the diaspora, even on the grounds there. The frequent visits of our comrades down there to do research on their own, it's very good. As you compile those information, guys, I keep saying it. The people need to know about it. Let's develop a platform, a mechanism. Peter could come out there and speak. Like this guy is saying, you're going to blame Cummings for the breakup of CPP? That means he hasn't read anything. You're going to blame Cummings, really? These are the kind of misinformation that I'm getting at. So if we can develop a mechanism to sell and market our candidate, I'm telling you, there will be no second round. There will be no second round, but the job has to be done in the trenches. We need to engage our people one-on-one, from village to village, towns to towns, cities to cities. And I want to thank you, Cyrus, as I thank you earlier on, for this kind of engagement. I would like for the panel to be more diversified. I know you try your best for it to be that way, but I equally so want a propaganda machinery for the ANC, or for Cummings, should I say that, for Cummings. I want to thank you guys for partaking. Thank you, Cyrus, for inviting us here. I hope we can do more to the audience.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Mr. Jumo, I'll tell you what, the composition of the panels today is deliberate. The idea of today's program is to have the ANC team, the spokesperson, tell us about Mr. Cummings' suitability to be president of Liberia, and also his electability. I hope that next week we'll do the same for the Unity Party. I will reach out to them, and I hope that I will share this year discussion and give them a chance to come and make the case for the candidate. I think we cover all the bases, but I just wanted to reiterate that, and just as the program was framed, the reality about the issue we are facing is that we have two sets of issues. One, we have the governance issue, which comes after. And it seems that it's not only supporters of Cummings who believe that Cummings is probably the most competent. Most people are. I had John Balu here when he was advocating for that ticket pairing, Ambassador Barker was a Cummings, and he more or less said the same thing, that Cummings is probably the best prepared person for the work. But then we have the issue of electability. That's where some of the questions were coming from. And electability is basically based on numbers. Yeah, it's good that we know that a good bit of work has been done, but perception also matters, and don't dismiss them. And you cannot change Liberia until you have the mandate to lead Liberia. So in the election circle, it may be necessary that in order to win votes, that we are measured in the way we articulate our plans. So I'm happy that you guys are I'm really impressed that with the discussions and the interchange, and I'll be reaching out to you guys more and more as we move into the red period election. I know it's gonna get a little more fiery, and everybody got to wear.
Trust me, this was our softer side.
everybody got to wear their thing.
Yeah,
that takes skin. Everybody from all sides. I come with a view that our intention is to
Cyrus, can I ask you a favor in front of the world?
Yeah, go ahead, do that.
So next week you say you're going to have UP folks, and usually they find a way to duck questions. You ask us a lot of poignant, hard hitting, in your face questions.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
I'll ask you to do the same, but no, there's a specific question I'd like to ask. There are two specific questions that I'm going to tune in next week to hear them answer.
Mm-hmm.
Number one question: what is Joseph Boyka's economic worldview, and where can we go to hear him articulate it? I didn't ask him what the plan is. I didn't ask him to say, "Oh, arrest in 1 hour, 2 hours." I'm saying, what's your economic worldview? Where can we go hear you articulate it?
Well, you see, part of asking the question, you gotta be respectful about it. So ask the question.
Absolutely.
Don't give the answer. What's the second question?
I'm saying not to. That's the answer we've gotten.
What's the second question?
Here's the second question. People usually they keep putting out the narrative that Cummings doesn't have public service. Oh, he doesn't have governmental
experience, right?
Can you please ask them to articulate to the world, the rest of us, what skill set that Joseph Boyka had acquired while serving the government that would serve the Liberian people that Cummings wouldn't have at this point as a bureaucratic manager for a multinational company? What skill set that he would have acquired from Liberia that Cummings wouldn't have based on his experience? That's
okay, Peter, one favor I need from you is text or email me those two questions. I can assure you that I will give it to the UP guys beforehand so that they can prepare to answer your question, and I will ask them. The plan is to have the UP team here in the same way on next Sunday, but that will be dependent on their willingness also to do so. But I will make a good effort to get them to come so we can discuss it. And I really appreciate the show, you guys. We run another 38 minutes into what should have been a 2-hour program, but I think it was rewarding to our audience. And you guys have a good rest of the Sunday. And thanks for coming. Thanks also to our audience for joining us and for your participation. This is it's a long haul game. You know, we all are looking up to trying to lay the foundation again for to add value to our country and make it work for everybody. So thanks a lot, and thanks for joining Election Central.
Thank you.
Devils are crying, oh. Market women are crying, oh. John, we are go. We tire, oh, John, we are go. Innocent people are dying, oh. The students are sitting home. John, we are go. We Jawiago, 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 we tire, oh, Jawiago, 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 we tire, oh, Jawiago, yeah, Jawiago, we tire, oh, Jawiago, hey, go, go, go. Go, go, go. Mwa, mwa, Jawia mwa. Hey, go, go, go. Go, go, go. Mwa, mwa, Jawia mwa. Liberia is bleeding, oh. The people are suffering, oh. Jawia go. We tired, Jawia go. We tired with the hunger. We tired eating curry, oh. Jawiago. We tired, Jawiago. Musicians are crying, oh. Hospitals are empty, oh. Jawiago. We tired, oh, Jawiago.